Chapter 192. Imperial Tutor Yi Feng is a citizen of the Yang State. You tried to tempt my citizen without my permission. That's not fair and square. That's the first reason. When I played chess with Imperial Tutor Yi Feng, it was obvious that I had a goal and a decision to make. Before the matter was settled, you rudely interfered. That's not fair and square enough. That's the second reason. Miss Meng, what do you think? Yang Chuan asked in a low voice. Bastard, does Miss Meng need to answer to you? Someone shouted from the side. The Julu Academy accepting students is his good fortune. It's your Yang State's good fortune. Another person shouted. Ha 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 ha, good fortune. Shong Ruo, I tricked all the great scholars of the Julu Academy. That's their good fortune, and also your Julu Academy's good fortune. Yang Chuan shouted coldly. How dare you? Arrogant. That's enough. Meng Rongrong waved her hand and stopped the person behind her from speaking. Meng Rongrong smiled slightly. Are you trying to anger me and make the Julu Academy give up on accepting Yi Feng? Ha, I, Yang Chuan, am not that despicable. Yi Feng is a citizen of the Yang State. I believe in his character. He won't switch to the Julu Academy just because of some temptations. Yang Chuan laughed. Then what do you mean? Meng Rongrong said in a low voice. I'm just stating a fact. Miss Meng, I know that the Julu Academy has countless practitioners and is very strong. The Yang State doesn't care about you at all. However, an academy that has been passed down for 50,000 years must have its own principles. Does the Julu Academy's principles include bullying others? Yang Chuan said in a low voice. Bullying others? Meng Rongrong looked at Yang Chuan strangely. Are you saying that I'm a bully? Isn't that right? Poaching Yang State's people, doesn't that count? Yang Chuan said with a smile. Meng Rongrong raised her eyebrows. She was somewhat angered by Yang Chuan's crooked reasoning. However, she rationally realized that what Yang Chuan said was not wrong. If the Yang State was considered as a sect, then her wantonly poaching people was indeed a bully. The Julu Academy has been passed down for 50,000 years. What it relies on is not only strength, but also principles. This is the foundation of the Julu Academy. My previous actions were thoughtless. However, if Yi Feng doesn't want to stay in the Yang State, I will definitely take him away, Meng Rongrong said in a deep voice. That's natural. If I, Yang Chuan, am unable to keep Yi Feng, then you can take him away. I won't stop you. Yang Chuan took a deep breath and said with a smile. Stop you? Just you? A person behind Meng Rongrong said disdainfully. Miss Meng, you won't rob him, right? Yang Chuan said with a smile. Meng Rongrong's eyes flashed with anger. Yang Chuan's words made it seem as if she was a despicable person. HMPH, Yang Chuan, keep dreaming. Yi Feng is a person who is about to die. Only the Julu Academy is his home. Only the Julu Academy can let him display his talents. How can he stay? Another person shouted. That's right. What can you give him? Meng Rongrong said in a deep voice. No matter what I can give him, I think that after playing another game of chess with Yi Feng, he will definitely not want to enter the Julu Academy. I didn't mean anything by all that I said just now. I just want to emphasize that I hope Miss Meng won't make things difficult for him, Yang Chuan said with a serious face. Haha, make things difficult for him? Do you think that Yi Feng will stay in the small Yang State? Meng Rongrong said in a strange voice. Obviously, in Meng Rongrong's mind, the small Yang State was indeed not worthy of being shown in public. I'm sure. Yang Chuan said in a deep voice. Ha ha ha, keep dreaming. That's impossible. The Julu Academy students said in disbelief. Meng Rongrong raised her eyebrows as if she had sensed something. At this moment, Yang Chuan suddenly stood up and bowed slightly to Meng Rongrong. Miss Meng, please fulfill my wish. Meng Rongrong's face twitched slightly. She couldn't see through Yang Chuan. Why was he so confident? Fulfill his wish. After the game, if Yi Feng is willing to come with us, you. Meng Rongrong said in a deep voice. I'll clap my hands and send you off. Yang Chuan said with a confident smile. Meng Rongrong looked at Yang Chuan strangely. As long as you don't use underhanded methods, I'll fulfill your wish. Meng Rongrong nodded. Meng Rongrong was also full of confidence. The Julu Academy was a paradise for the wise. People like Yi Feng yearned for it. Yi Feng was old, so how could he give it up? Yang Chuan's actions are honorable, Yang Chuan said with certainty. After that, Yang Chuan led Liu Jin out of the pavilion. Eldest young miss, has this brat lost his mind? How is that possible? Someone stepped forward and asked. That's right. I admit that this kid plays chess well, but in my academy, there are many people who are better than him. It's impossible for Yi Feng to be so short-sighted as to not be willing to follow us just because of a game of chess. While everyone was criticizing Yang Chuan, Meng Rongrong felt irritated. She didn't know why. Chapter 193. Star Luo Manor, Soaring Palace. Grandfather, what is that Yang Chuan up to? Yi Lin said unhappily. What's wrong? Yi Feng put down the book in his hand and smiled. What did he say? Flatten the island in the middle of the lake and want to play Go with you? What does this game have to do with the island? He's looking for trouble. Yi Lin said unhappily. Didn't he explain? Yi Feng smiled. He explained, but what kind of explanation is that? The Grand Preceptor's Go skills are sufficient, but he doesn't know how deep they are. I will let the Grand Preceptor see the true extent of his Go skills. What is chess? Grandpa, look, what is he saying? How can you not know about your Go skills? You still need a brat like him to tell you what to do. Yi Lin said angrily. Then fix the island in the middle of the lake according to what he said. Yi Feng shook his head and smiled. But. Yi Lin felt even more strange. Go. Yi Feng smiled. All right. Yi Lin sighed. Flatten the island in the middle of the lake and build a Go platform? At the lakeside, Meng Rongrong, Chang Qing, and the others looked at the busy lake with strange expressions. First young miss, what is Yang Chuan doing? Playing Go in the middle of the lake. Is there such a thing? Chang Qing asked curiously. Let's wait. The game is about to start. We will know then, Meng Rongrong said. All right. In the valley in a large hall, fog filled the air, making it difficult to see one's fingers. At the center of the hall was a desk. 8 oil lamps were lit. Liu Jin was grinding while Yang Chuan was writing on a piece of paper with the Dream Immortal brush. On the paper, Yang Chuan was writing the word fog. When the word fog appeared, the fog in the surroundings trembled. Liu Jin, how many do you have? Yang Chuan asked in a deep voice. The Lord has already written 109 of them, 108 fog characters. The word fusion. Liu Jin said respectfully. All right, that's enough. Yang Chuan nodded. I'll rest for 2 days. You go and tell Yi Feng that I'll see you at Huxin Island 2 days later, Yang Chuan said solemnly. Yes. Liu Jin replied. Starnet Villa, in the outer valley. The group of Go masters were no longer playing Go. However, none of them left. Instead, they all went to the entrance of the valley. A group of household servants stopped him. I heard that the Emperor's equal and Master Yi are preparing to play a second game of Go. Can you pass on the message? We only wish to watch the battle. A white-browed chess master said politely. That's right, we won't say anything. We just want to watch the battle. Please report this to Master Yi. We really want to watch this game, the group of Go masters longed. The previous game was already a once-in-a-thousand-years opportunity. Now, it was rumored that the second game would be even more exciting. To ordinary people, it was merely a lively atmosphere. However, to these Go masters, who loved Go as much as their lives, this was a fatal temptation. So much so that everyone was jointly pleading just to watch this game. Grandfather, the Go masters outside are jointly requesting an audience. However, wouldn't it be breaking the rules if so many people come in at once? Yi Lin asked with a frown. If they want to watch, then watch. When the time comes, don't stop anyone who wants to watch. Yi Feng said with a smile. Yes. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Yang Chuan washed up and slowly walked out of his residence. Liu Jin led the way to the small lake. Chapter 194. At this moment, all the Go masters stood by the lake, watching eagerly as Yang Chuan walked over step by step. There was worship in their eyes, but they also felt speechless. They finally obtained the right to watch the Go game after much difficulty. However, they discovered that the two were playing in the center of the lake. How could they watch this? At a pavilion on the other side, Meng Rongrong wore a conical bamboo hat as she sat on a stone bench, drinking tea and watching quietly. Chang Qing and the others stood behind her, watching this scene strangely. No one knew what Yang Chuan was up to. There were some simple cooking utensils, pastries, and a Go board in the center of the lake. There were also 2 benches for resting. A white-haired old man sat on the Go board. This old man showed an indifferent expression as he watched Yang Chuan walk over from a distance. Yang Chuan also saw the old man. However, he did not say anything as he was separated by the lake. Emperor equal to the emperor, please. Yi Lin stepped forward. All right. Yang Chuan nodded. Yang Chuan carried the Jade Emperor's sword on his back, and Liu Jin carried a painting on her back. They followed Yi Lin onto a small boat, which quickly reached the island in the center. They reached the shore. Yang Chuan greets the Grand Preceptor, Yang Chuan said with a smile. Yi Feng greets the Emperor equal to the Emperor, Yi Feng also said politely. Yang Chuan chose this place to play Go with the Grand Preceptor to show off the exquisiteness of my Go Dao. I hope that the Grand Preceptor will like it, Yang Chuan said with a smile. I'll wait and see, Yi Feng nodded. Yi Feng did not say much. Yang Chuan did not say much, either, as now was not the time. Liu Jin. Yang Chuan looked at Liu Jin. Yes. Liu Jin quickly unfurled the spatial painting and slowly took out a piece of paper. Hey! Yi Lin's eyes widened in surprise. In the distance, in the gazebo by the lake, Meng Rongrong said strangely, a spatial magic treasure? Yi Feng's eyes flashed, but he didn't say anything. Liu Jin lifted the chessboard on the stone table and pressed the piece of paper under it. Melt! Good writing, but what does it mean? Yi Feng smiled. You'll know soon enough. Yang Chuan said with a smile. Liu Jin, go. Yang Chuan looked at Liu Jin. Yes. Liu Jin stepped onto the small boat from before, and the household servant quickly steered the boat to the shore. Then, Liu Jin took out pieces of rice paper from the scroll. He placed one of them by the lakeside and used a rock to press it down. Buzz. The small lake was suddenly surrounded by mist. What's going on? Fog. Why is there fog here? Indeed, only this area has fog. There is no fog anywhere else. That piece of paper. Could it be an immortal magic treasure? The Go masters exclaimed in shock. However, Liu Jin ignored them. Instead, she went around the small lake and quickly arranged the pieces of rice paper, pressing them down with a rock to secure them. The fog grew thicker. With the lake's water replenishing the fog rose. Many gazes focused on each piece of rice paper. Startling wind and rain? Yi Feng exclaimed in shock. Oh! The Grand Tutor knows about it as well. Yang Chuan smiled. Your father mentioned it before. Unexpectedly, you actually reached this level at such a young age. Yi Feng sighed. Yang Chuan did not correct Xiao Chen. He only smiled faintly and said, when cultivators play Go, they infuse their magic energy into the chessboard. Right now, we are only in the strength realm and naturally cannot do that. I used a trick, using fog to manifest the Go Dao after gaining magic energy. Let's wait and see, Yi Feng said with a smile. At the side, Yi Feng's grandson revealed a stunned expression as he stared at Yang Chuan. It was like he was seeing Yang Chuan for the first time. At the pavilion by the lakeside, startling wind and rain? Was this written by Yang Chuan? Chang Qing exclaimed. Chapter 195. It's not a stroke of the brush, but a stroke of the brush, Meng Rongrong said in a low voice. What? A stroke of the brush, a stroke of the brush? How is that possible? The crowd exclaimed. Indeed, it can't be wrong. Although I haven't reached that level, I can still see that his chess skills are so good, and his calligraphy skills are so good. It's a pity that my brother isn't here. Otherwise, he wouldn't have let Yang Chuan take the lead. Meng Rongrong frowned. There was envy and dissatisfaction in her tone. Young mistress brother? Mr. Munro? Yes, Mr. Munro was the genius of the academy back then. If it wasn't for that incident back then. Haha. No matter what, Mr. Munro is still young mistress brother. The relationship between you two can't be severed. Otherwise, Mr. Munro wouldn't have given young mistress the essence-boosting pill, Chongqing said with a smile. Millimeter. Meng Rongrong nodded. She didn't want to say anything else. Not long after, Liu Jin arranged the 108 fog characters around the lake. For a moment, the entire lake was shrouded in a thick fog, and the thick fog was rolling non-stop. It was impossible to see the two people in the center of the lake. The chess masters couldn't see the chessboard in the lake in the first place. Now that it was shrouded in fog, they couldn't see anything at all. However, no one complained. Instead, they became even more excited. On the island in the middle of the lake, Yi Feng looked at the fog in surprise. Yi Lin's mouth was wide open. This is? Yi Feng asked. The Julu Academy must have countless wise people, and many of them have made great achievements in chess. Although I haven't been to the Julu Academy, I can feel the flourishing culture there. However, my calligraphy today contains some special Taoist rhymes. What I want to show the Grand Tutor is the way of chess in my heart. Grand Tutor, watch carefully, Yang Chuan said with a smile. Please. Yi Feng gestured for him to move aside. Yang Chuan didn't stand on ceremony. He picked up a black piece between his index and middle fingers and placed it in the center of the chessboard. Pa. A piece was placed in the Tianyuan position. Boom. Suddenly, there was a loud clap of thunder in the sky. Rumble. The white fog in the lake suddenly started to circle around the small island in the center. It circled clockwise, faster and faster. It was like a huge whirlpool with the island in the center. At the same time, a huge dark cloud had appeared above the white fog vortex. When the piece was placed in Tianyuan, a loud thunderclap came from this dark cloud. In the center of the dark clouds, a hole appeared. It was as if a black chess piece had been placed, and a large chessboard had appeared on the dark clouds. Hua! The surrounding mortals all looked at this scene in horror. In the pavilion by the lake. Words. Showing the chi aura when the brush falls? Yang Chuan's words fused with the chessboard? Meng Rongrong asked in surprise. The fusion of calligraphy and chess. Chongqing and the others were also stunned. How old is Yang Chuan? The people outside were already shocked, and Yi Feng, who was on the island in the center of the lake, felt the same way. For a moment, it was as if the chessboard had fused with the surrounding white fog. Yi Feng felt as if he was immersed in it. 4-4. Yi Feng placed a white piece. Nay tilde 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 nay tilde 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 nay tilde tilde tilde. In the rolling white fog, there was the sound of countless horses neighing. Boom. In the sky, there was another loud clap of thunder. Above the dark clouds, a white cloud spot suddenly appeared, as if it was reflecting the chessboard below. The sound of horses. Why is there the sound of horses? Yi Lin asked in surprise. This fog enters the chessboard, and the chess pieces are all in the fog. When the troops are arranged and the pieces are placed, there will be thousands of troops in ambush, Yang Chuan explained. Pa. As he spoke, Yang Chuan placed another piece. Nay. Nay. I'm invincible. Kill, kill, kill. In the white fog, tsunami-like war cries came, as if waiting for Yang Chuan's orders. The hot-blooded cries stirred the hearts of the people. Yi Lin was so frightened that he fell to the ground, his face full of horror. Yi Feng closed his eyes and felt it. When he closed his eyes, Yi Feng felt like he was in the sea of clouds, sitting alone on a high platform. The sea of clouds surged in all directions, and in the chessboard in his hand were thousands of troops, waiting for him to arrange the troops, waiting for him to arrange the chess pieces. When he placed a piece, it was like placing thousands of troops in the sea of clouds. The chessboard was the battlefield, and the chessboard was the end of the world. His blood, which had been silent for decades, seemed to be ignited at this moment, boiling with zeal. Dominating a region, challenging the world. Chapter 196. Dominating a region and challenging the world. Yi Feng's eyes suddenly opened. A look of disbelief flashed across his eyes. Yang Chuan was clearly sitting right in front of him, but when he closed his eyes, he felt like Yang Chuan was sitting on the other side of the sea of clouds, arranging troops with him. When they played chess in the past, arranging troops was just a personal thought, an illusion. But now, he felt like he was seeing it with his own eyes. Tens of thousands of soldiers, a magnificent army. This is my go game. Yi Feng frowned. That's right. Continue. Yang Chuan nodded. With me, I am invincible. The two of them continued to place down their go pieces and arrange their troops. For a moment, Yi Feng closed his eyes and sensed that millions of soldiers filled the sea of clouds. They filled the entire world. The two of them were not fighting Go, but fighting the entire world. Wherever the Go pieces were placed, the troops would arrive. Every Go piece represented a different meaning. Some were bright Go pieces, while others were dark Go pieces. The bright Go pieces became tens of thousands of soldiers, while the dark Go pieces became tens of thousands of hidden murderous intents. More and more Go pieces were placed on the Go board. The shouts in the white fog grew louder and louder. Clap. Yang Chuan placed a Go piece on the edge of the Go board and slowly pushed it toward the center. Battle cries could be heard from the white fog. Kill. Kill. Higher. Higher. All troops, charge. It was like a magnificent army suddenly raised their sabers and charged toward Yi Feng's battlefield. The black Go piece came to a stop. Bang. Rumble. Kill. Go all out. Clang. 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 Roars could be heard as if two armies were fighting. In the sea of clouds, a great battle broke out. The original arrangement of troops ended, and a new phase began. When the Go pieces were placed, the world moved. Ambitious and ruthless characters rose to fight for the world. Yi Feng closed his eyes and felt like he was in the middle of this exceptionally vast battle. The sounds of fighting and the neighing of horses could be heard continuously. In this noisy environment, Yi Feng was not disturbed at all. Instead, he became even more engrossed in the game of Go. His mind was completely focused on the game of Go. He commanded the troops in the Go Bowl to attack the Cloud Sea battlefield, to attack the enemy, to attack everything. It was a showdown between two great chess masters. At the side, Yi Feng's grandson was like a small boat in the middle of a roaring sea. He was shaking unsteadily, and his heart was trembling with fear. Vaguely, Yi Lin could see valiant generals condensed in the white mist charging forward, some even charging past him. Yi Lin had never felt such excitement in his life. At this moment, when Yi Lin looked at Yang Chuan again, there was no longer a trace of unhappiness. There was only fear. This person was too terrifying. Above the lake, thick fog was rolling. No one at the lakeside could see what was inside. He could only see the dense fog that was constantly rotating. It was incomparably mysterious. The spinning speed was sometimes fast and sometimes slow, as if it was corresponding to the internal layout of the chessboard. Kill. Who? Rumble. I'm invincible. Charge. Kill, kill, kill. Roars of wind and thunder came from the white mist. The sounds of thousands of troops fighting and charging rang out. At this moment, the Go master at the lakeside was stupefied. Why are there such sounds? Roars of wind and thunder? The sounds of battle on the battlefield. What is going on inside? Chapter 197. The Go masters felt confused, agitated, and excited. They even cheered in their hearts. The Go Dao. This was something that they had been pursuing all this time. They only knew that the Go Dao was profound. However, this was the first time they discovered that the Go Dao could be so powerful. Go! Go! The Go masters clenched their fists tightly as they looked at the white fog. They also looked at the dark clouds in the sky. Thunder rumbled endlessly in the dark clouds. Every time there was thunder, it was a Go stone. The black Go stones were dark pits, and the white Go stones were white clouds. The Go masters looked at the white fog and listened to the sounds of battle as they quickly recorded the Go stones with their brushes. This grand occasion of 1,000 years would definitely be passed down through the ages. In a pavilion at the side, Meng Rongrong, Chang Qing, and the others frowned as they looked at the sky. First young miss. What's going on? Changqing asked with a frown. Yang Chuan? When he wrote the character for fog, he infused the rhythm of the battlefield. Hence, when the two placed their go stones, the character and the go stones merged. When they placed their go stones, they created a vast battlefield, setting up the world. Meng Rongrong explained. Some of the great scholars in the academy can do that as well. However, they rarely play like this in front of others. This is Changqing's first time seeing this. Changqing sighed. First time? Haha. Let's continue watching. Meng Rongrong's eyes grew increasingly frustrated. On the other side, Liu Jin sighed as she watched this scene. Then, she instructed an embroidered uniform soldier beside her, "You stay here." "Eunuch Liu, you are leaving?" that embroidered uniform soldier asked, feeling confused. "Right. The Lord has another mission for me. You will stay here to serve the Lord. If the Lord has any requests, you will be responsible for relaying them," Liu Jin said. "Eunuch Liu, don't worry," that embroidered uniform soldier immediately guaranteed. "All right." Liu Jin nodded. While everyone was focused on the Go game in the middle of the lake, Liu Jin left the middle of the valley. Half a day later, in the Yang capital Imperial Palace, Liu Jin met with Yang Emperor. "Liu Jin, I heard that Yang Chuan is playing against Yifeng?" Yang Di asked curiously. "Yes, the Lord sent me to deliver a message to you," Liu Jin said solemnly. "Oh?" Yang Emperor asked curiously. Liu Jin took a deep breath and said, "The Lord says that it's about time. He wants the Yang Emperor to send a messenger pigeon to the front lines of the southern border and send troops to the state of Zheng to take back the 42 cities in the northern border of the state of Zheng." 42 cities in the northern frontier? Is it time now? Yang Di narrowed his eyes. "Yes, the Lord has said that you will be able to take it now. You have to be quick, or else there might be unforeseen circumstances." "Okay, I got it." Yang Emperor nodded. "In that case, Liu Jin will take her leave," Liu Jin said. "All right." Yang Di nodded. After watching Liu Jin leave, Yang Di frowned and fell into deep thought. Outside the imperial palace, Liu Jin saw Hua Guang, whose clothes were somewhat tattered, as soon as she came out. "Eunuch Liu, how was it?" Hua Guang asked with a smile. "According to the Lord's request, I've already informed Yang Emperor. What happens next is none of my business," Liu Jin said with a smile. "The Lord is really amazing. He's playing a game of Go in the valley and another game outside." Hua Guang sighed. "Actually, the Lord should be playing 3 games right now," Liu Jin said with a smile. "Oh." "The layout outside the valley is one game, the game inside the valley is another, and the game with Meng Rongrong is another game. We have nothing compared to the Julu Academy. In comparison, Yifeng is definitely more confident in the Julu Academy. Even if he's willing to play against the Lord, it's still the same. If we want to change Yifeng's mind and defeat Meng Rongrong, we have to win the first 2 games. We have to win the first 2 games to stimulate the third game and defeat Meng Rongrong," Liu Jin said in a deep voice. Chapter 198. That's right. No matter who it is, no matter how many reasons they have, they're all willing to go to Julu Academy. Those who aren't willing to help ordinary people in the power state. "I hope that the Lord will win," Hua Guang nodded. "We'll definitely win," Liu Jin said solemnly. "Yes. Also, the Lord asked you to come back and look for poisoners' relics. Have you found them?" Liu Jin asked doubtfully. "Motherfucker, it's the Zhao family who was hiding poisoner. When the poisoner was forced out, the Zhao family took everything and fled Beijing. Ch, I've already sent people to hunt them down. No one can take away what the Lord want," Hua Guang said in a deep voice. Liu Jin nodded. In the middle of the valley, on the island in the middle of the lake, thick fog pervaded the air and killing intent was everywhere. Yi Lin could not get a word in at this moment. Yang Chuan and Yi Feng stared at the chessboard with rapt attention. "The dragon has been formed. Wait for me to slaughter it," Yi Feng said solemnly. Pa. A white piece landed on the chessboard. As the white chess piece was placed, a roar came from the surrounding fog again. Yi Feng closed his eyes and once again saw the countless troops on the sea of clouds attacking according to his plan. 10,000 arrows. Yes. Bam. 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 100,000 arrows soared into the sky like a storm, shooting toward the other side of the sea of clouds, toward the forces controlled by Yang Chuan. Yi Feng's heart was surging as he watched. The 10,000 arrows were shot out simultaneously, not because of their power, but because of their momentum. A feeling of surging momentum arose spontaneously. Yang Chuan stared at Yi Feng. Seeing that Yi Feng was enjoying this feeling, he revealed a satisfied smile. Slay my dragon? How could it be that easy? Reversal of yin and yang, sacrifice death for life. Yang Chuan smiled. Pa. On the chessboard, Yang Chuan destroyed 3 of his own pieces, but because these 3 pieces were seeking death, the dragon came back to life. Once the dragon came back to life, the slaying of the dragon failed. And to counter Yi Feng, shield block. Dang 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 dang. Everyone, charge. Yi Feng closed his eyes. Above the cloud sea, Xiao Chen's initial advantage immediately reversed. The 2 armies clashed in close combat, instantly causing countless casualties. Yi Feng raised his eyebrows. He pondered for a moment. Grandpa, it's time to eat. Yi Lin whispered from the side. No. Yi Feng continued to look at the chessboard. I know that you won't be able to eat at this time. We don't know how long this game of chess will take. This is a fasting pill. 1 pill will last you 15 days. Yang Chuan handed over a small bottle. Yi Feng stopped playing Go and looked at the small bottle. Then, he took a deep breath and nodded. All right. Venerable Grand Tutor, how is this prince's Go setting? Yang Chuan asked with a smile. This is the first time I have seen something like this. It is exquisite and peerless. Yi Feng said gravely. My Go pieces are not just on this chessboard. Yang Chuan said with a smile. Oh. In the future, my Go pieces will not just be here. No matter how big the sky is, everything will be my chessboard. Yang Chuan said seriously. Oh. Yi Feng narrowed his eyes. Venerable Grand Tutor, you don't believe me? Yang Chuan asked with a smile. The Lord has great aspirations. This old man is already old. Yi Feng said, shaking his head. Venerable Grand Tutor is undervaluing yourself. Old? How are you old? Yang Chuan countered with a smile. Yi Feng smiled faintly and did not answer. Venerable Grand Tutor, what do you think of my Yang state compared to the Julu Academy? Yang Chuan asked again. Compared? Yi Feng's eyes flashed. Yi Feng was an extremely intelligent person. He immediately understood Yang Chuan's meaning. However, he looked at Yang Chuan with uncertainty. Yang Chuan wanted to develop the Yang state to be as powerful as the Julu Academy. Is that possible? Yi Feng asked with a frown. Chapter 199. Is that possible? Yi Feng frowned. The first person to become an immortal, before he became an immortal, he looked up at the sky and said the same thing as you. Is it possible? Yang Chuan smiled. Hey! Yi Lin was at a loss. The first immortal? Who was the first immortal? Did he say that? Yi Lin was at a loss, but Yi Feng understood. It was not important whether the first person to become an immortal said anything. What was important was Yang Chuan's current attitude. Was that even possible? Yes, why not? Yi Feng smiled and shook his head. The Lord's idea is admirable, but I can tell you with certainty that it's absolutely possible. Yang Chuan said again. Oh. Yi Feng narrowed his eyes. In terms of the political system, is the political system of the country not perfect? Yang Chuan asked. Perfect, it's a pity that in the end, it won't amount to anything. The world is so big, and the countries all belong to the immortal sects. They belong to any immortal sect. It has never changed. Yi Feng shook his head. Yang Chuan frowned slightly. Yang Chuan naturally understood where Yi Feng's certainty came from. For Yi Feng, although he could not enter the world of cultivators, it should not be too difficult for him to gather some information. Yi Feng said that the country had always been suppressed by the immortal sects. Yang Chuan was silent for a moment. Could it be that in this world, the dynasty had reached its end? What kind of place was he in? The Lord. Yi Feng was puzzled. Yang Chuan came back to his senses. He no longer wanted to dwell on this matter. Instead, he shook his head and said, as you said, the country has always been at the bottom. But why does this kind of government still exist? Yi Feng frowned slightly. Because a country has its own uniqueness and a strong vitality that cannot be obliterated. Even if they are at the bottom, they will still be immortal. Yang Chuan said solemnly. So what if it is as you say? Yi Feng frowned. Yang Chuan smiled and said, aside from the gate of immortality, what can you see in Yang State? Oh. In the cultivation world, there is the Julu Academy. In the Yang State, there is the Imperial College. In the cultivation world, there is the Buddhist and Daoist sects. In the Yang State, there is the Temple of Heaven. In the cultivation world, there is the geomancy of the netherworld. In the Yang State, there is the Digwan to measure the power. Do you think it's related? Yang Chuan smiled. Yi Feng's face suddenly turned serious as he stared at Yang Chuan. This was because Yi Feng could hear a great ambition in Yang Chuan's tone. This ambition was something Yi Feng had never seen before. Yang Chuan's goal was not only as big as the Julu Academy, but also the world. Not just the world of mortals, but the world of cultivators as well. That's impossible. Yi Feng shouted. Grand Tutor, let's continue. Think about it again. A few days ago, when Meng Rongrong tried to recruit you, why didn't you agree immediately? Yang Chuan smiled. Yi Feng narrowed his eyes. I think you have your own considerations. Think about it again. Why do you have those considerations? Yi Feng, what exactly do you want? What's the most important to you? Yang Chuan laughed. Let's continue. Yi Feng said solemnly. Yi Feng did not want to be entangled in this matter. He wanted to use the game of chess to forget those thoughts that he should not have. All right, let's continue. Yang Chuan nodded. 1 month later. Wind and thunder rumbled, and the clouds roared. The valley in the valley of the Star Luo Mountain Manor had already become a mythical place. Countless Go Masters waited with surging hearts. Just waiting was enough to express their boundless devotion to the Go Dao. Meng Rongrong, Chang Qing, and the others had already waited for a month in a pavilion by the lake. Chapter 200. Thunder rumbled in the sky, horses neighed in the fog, and an army roared. The tragedy of the battle was on full display. It had been a month, but the game was still not over. Meng Rongrong stared gloomily at the lake shrouded in white fog. Yang Chuan. Meng Rongrong's eyes flashed with irritation. Young mistress, you don't have to worry. Yang Chuan can't beat you. Yi Feng isn't a fool. Why would he give up the chance to live forever? That's right, young mistress. How could a game of Go convince Yi Feng? The Julu Academy students kept comforting Meng Rongrong. Meng Rongrong let out a long sigh. Then, she smiled bitterly and said, I thought so too, but I don't know why, but I have a bad feeling. It's as if Yang Chuan's chips are getting higher and higher as the game goes on. That's impossible. The great scholars of the Julu Academy should be able to do that. Chang Qing frowned. Did you see the cloud chess game reflected in the sky? Meng Rongrong asked in a low voice. I saw it, but so what? Yi Feng's rhythm is getting smoother, Meng Rongrong said in a low voice. Rhythm? Smoother? It's just that I'm liking this game more and more, Meng Rongrong said in a low voice. But it's just a game of Go. It doesn't mean anything. Chang Qing frowned. I hope so. Meng Rongrong took a deep breath. Miss, you don't have to be so concerned. If Yi Feng really doesn't want to enter the Julu Academy, then it's his bad luck, Chang Qing advised. No, it's not just Yi Feng's problem. There's also Yang Chuan. I'm Meng Rongrong. How can I lose to Yang Chuan? How could he lose to a mortal? You think you can steal the person I want right in front of me? Absolutely not, Meng Rongrong said in a deep voice. Not only did it involve self-esteem, but it also involved the confidence of the past. Meng Rongrong could not lose. Beijing. It was a large restaurant, and behind the restaurant was an extremely elegant courtyard for rent. There were 8 Taoist priests sitting in the courtyard. The leader was none other than Zhu Jiansheng of the Dai sect. Zhu Jiansheng looked at the other 7 people and said, "Junior brothers, I'll have to trouble you this time." "You're welcome, senior brother. As long as you say the word, we'll naturally do our best." One of the Taoist priests smiled. "Moreover, I'd like to see how the son of the previous sect leader is doing," another Taoist priest said. "Yeah, it's a pity what happened back then. Otherwise, Yang Chuan wouldn't be in the mortal world for the next few years. He would be the young sect leader of the Dai sect. However, I didn't expect Yang Chuan to be so famous after returning to Beijing not long ago. He even knows how to play chess. Haha, that's not all. He made Dan Qingzi suffer so much with his mortal body. Ha 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 ha." The group of brothers chatted and laughed. Dan Qingzi is the eldest disciple of King Mui. He used to be high and mighty. I didn't expect Yang Chuan to humiliate him. I heard that he gathered 7 or 8 of his friends to vent their anger on Yang Chuan. "Everyone, you have to protect Yang Chuan," Zhu Jiansheng said. "Don't worry, senior brother. The previous sect leader, Yang Dao, took good care of us back then. How can we allow others to humiliate our sect leader's son when he was harmed by a traitor?" A Taoist priest said solemnly. "That's right. Although there are people in the sect who hate Yang Dao, we are very clear about our grudges. We will definitely ensure that Yang Chuan enters the sect safely," another person said. Chapter 201. Okay. While the 8 of them were talking, a woman in purple walked out slowly from a side room. She was tall and wore a gorgeous purple robe. Even her hair was purple. But she was wearing a golden mask on her face, so no one could see her face clearly. The woman walked elegantly and slowly towards them. They didn't notice her at first, but when they saw her, their faces changed. Hualala. The 8 of them jumped up from their chairs at the same time and quickly retreated to the side. They stopped when they were about 20 feet away from the woman. When they looked at her, cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. Miss Z, why did you come out?" They looked at the woman in fear. "I'm sorry, I'll be careful next time," the woman sighed. No, it's our fault. Miss Z, please don't take it to heart. We were just talking about Yang Chuan. We were about to tell you," Zhu Jiansheng said immediately. The woman in purple was puzzled. Although Yang Chuan just came back, he has a high reputation in Beijing. He has captured a Qi state expert with his strength state cultivation. Now, he is playing chess in Xingluo Mountain Villa. I heard that they have been playing chess for a month. It's very exciting. Zhu Jiansheng reported from afar. Yes, Miss Z. Although Yang Chuan is just an ordinary person, he is very intelligent. It's not a disgrace for Miss Z to have a fiancé like Yang Chuan, another person said from afar. Fiancé? Haha, how can someone like me be his wife? Miss Z said with a wry smile. Miss Z, please don't think like that. Your marriage was set by Yang Dao and his wife. Uncle Yang Dao will not harm his son. He must have his reasons. Don't think too much, Zhu Jiansheng reported from afar. Miss Z looked at the crowd and shook her head with a wry smile. I've already harmed them. I don't want to harm their son too. No, Miss Z, please don't think like that. The death of Yang Chuan's parents has nothing to do with you. It has absolutely nothing to do with you, Zhu Jiansheng shouted. Is that so? Miss Z shook her head. Zhu Jiansheng looked at his 8 fellow disciples and retreated far away in fear. Just like this, they were not convincing at all. Zhu Jiansheng said with a wry smile, Miss Z, you see, it's not appropriate for us to intervene in your marriage. Why don't we wait until we see Yang Chuan? What do you think? Alas, well, I won't make things difficult for you. I'll go back to my room first. You go and see when he's done with his game. After he's done, help me inform him that I want to meet him. Miss Z sighed slightly. Don't worry, Miss Z. Zhu Jiansheng promised. Don't worry, Miss Z. The other 7 junior brothers also responded. Yes. Miss Z nodded and returned to her room. Crack. When the door closed, The 8 martial brothers all let out a long sigh. Let's go out for a walk, Zhu Jiansheng said. Good, good, good. All the junior brothers shouted in agreement. After leaving the restaurant, the 8 Taoist priests walked on the street in silence for a long time. Miss Z is so kind and has such a good character. Why do I feel scared every time I see her? One of them asked. Miss Z is a jinx. So what if she has a good character? Another person frowned. 6th junior brother. Zhu Jiansheng glared at him. Fine, I was wrong. I won't say any more. 6th junior brother suddenly smiled bitterly. Alas, this marriage was arranged when martial uncle Yang Dao was still alive. I don't know what will happen in the future. Zhu Jiansheng sighed slightly. Senior brother, why did you bring Miss Z here? Another person asked. Do you think I wanted to? That day in the drunken Immortal restaurant, I heard that Dan Qingzi wanted to deal with Yang Chuan. I immediately scolded him. Who knew that the drunken Immortal restaurant was Miss Z's property? If she wants to come, would I dare to stop her? Are you going to stop them? Zhu Jiansheng said gloomily. I don't dare to. Forget it, let Yang Chuan deal with it. He is his fiancé. Why should we worry about her? That's right, that's right. The 8 of them walked on the street. Suddenly, in the distant sky, 2 huge bats flew in from outside the city. Dan Qingzi, that guy is here. Zhu Jiansheng's eyes lit up. Chapter 202. Yangjing. Inside the palace. Liu Jin and Hu Guang were currently facing Yang Emperor. Zhao Tianwang, how dare you? Yang Emperor's eyes were filled with anger. With one palm, the Yang Emperor shattered the tea set on one side. Zhao Tianwang declared himself the emperor and established the state of Zhao. He really has guts. Liu Jin also said solemnly. Hu Guang, when your men went after the Zhao family, did they manage to steal the poisoner's belongings? Yang Emperor suddenly turned his head and looked at Hu Guang. Yes, we managed to get a part of it. However, from the captured Zhao family members, Zhao Tianwang also took a part of it. Hu Guang nodded. Oh, what about it? Yang Emperor's eyes lit up. Hu Guang stared at Yang Emperor and shook his head. Sorry, we'll leave it to the Lord to deal with. Let's wait for the Lord to finish his game. Yang Emperor stared at Hu Guang with a gloomy expression. However, he quickly recovered and smiled. Of course. Yang Emperor, may I ask if the 42 cities in the northern border of the state of Zheng have been handed over? Liu Jin asked. Liu Jin didn't address him as Your Majesty anymore. Yang Emperor also noticed the problem in Liu Jin's words. However, he didn't object. A pigeon reported that the state of Zheng is cooperating. Yang Emperor nodded. That's good. Everything is going according to the Lord's plan. Liu Jin sighed. While the 3 were talking, an angry roar came from the outside. Yang Chuan, you little brat, come out. Thunder rumbled and echoed throughout the palace. The 3 people's faces changed as they walked out of the main hall. At this moment, there were 2 huge bats circling high up in the sky. There were 4 people standing on each of the bats. One of them was the eldest senior brother who had been captured by the feng shui poison not long ago. He stepped on a bat and hovered in the air. Everyone looked down coldly. Soon, he saw Hu Guang. After all, Hu Guang was beside Yang Chuan last time. It's you. Where is Yang Chuan? The green-robed eldest senior brother shouted. I am Yang Emperor. Who are you? Yang Emperor walked to the front. Yang Emperor? It's good that it's you. The state of Zheng's northern borders 42 cities have been handed over to you. Now, release my junior apprentice brother and the state of Zheng's crown prince, shouted the azure-robed eldest apprentice brother. Release him? Yang Di looked at Hu Guang. No. We are under the Lord's orders to keep them under custody. Unless the Lord gives the order, no one is to be released. Hu Guang shouted. Huh? Yang Emperor raised an eyebrow. His expression turned ugly. However, Hu Guang was only loyal to Yang Chuan. Without Yang Chuan's order, he wouldn't dare to release them now. What about Yang Chuan? The azure-robed eldest senior brother shouted. The Lord is playing chess. Wait for the Lord to finish. The Lord is a man of his word, but no one can give the order without the Lord, Hu Guang said solemnly. Playing chess. HMPH. Did something happen to my junior apprentice brothers? Release my junior apprentice brothers, or we will wash Yang capital with blood today, the azure-robed eldest senior brother shouted. Oh! Wash Yang capital with blood? How dare you, Dan Qingzi? Is this King Mui's idea? A provocative voice sounded. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 8 figures shot into the sky and landed on the roof of a palace in Yang capital. They stood on the roof of the palace and glared at the 8 people on the bat. Jujian Sheng, it's you? Eldest senior brother Dan Qingzi said coldly. It's us. Can't you talk nicely? Do you think you're so high up on the bat? Who are you trying to show your arrogance to? Jujian Sheng said disdainfully. It's Yang Chuan who went back on his word. Zhang has already returned the cities. Why aren't you releasing them? Dan Qingzi said solemnly. Chapter 203. Did Yang Chuan say he won't let him go? Can't you wait for a game of chess? Jujian Sheng said disdainfully. I don't care. I want to see my junior brother now. Dan Qingzi drew his sword and shouted coldly. Shiying. Jujian Sheng also drew his Changqing and said, Yang Jing is not a place for you to behave atrociously. While the two sides were at loggerheads, another purple figure slowly flew up from the distance, flying towards the crowd. Misty. Jujian Sheng and the others immediately became serious. Dan Qingzi and the others didn't know who this woman was at first, so they still drew their swords and faced her. Ah! Retreat! Dan Qingzi's expression changed drastically as he shouted. The 2 bats immediately flew away. After flying far away, Dan Qingzi looked at the woman in purple with a panicked expression. Misty, why are you here? Dan Qingzi said with a fearful expression. My cultivation isn't as high as yours. What are you afraid of? Misty said calmly. I wouldn't dare. What are we in front of, Misty? Dan Qingzi smiled apologetically. Since that's the case, I'll say something. Misty said calmly. Please speak, Misty. Dan Qingzi said carefully. You've already waited so many days for your junior brother to be captured. Waiting for Yang Chuan to finish his game shouldn't be a big deal, right? Misty said calmly. It's not a big deal, it's not a big deal. Dan Qingzi's expression changed. Below, Hu Guang looked at the sky strangely. He then whispered to Liu Jin in disdain, why does this brat look so despicable? Liu Jin smiled and sighed. No matter what, it's best that he didn't disrupt the Lord's plan. Millimeter. Hu Guang nodded. Jujian Sheng, where is Yang Chuan playing chess? Misty thought for a moment and asked. I heard that he's at Xingluo Mountain Villa. Jujian Sheng immediately said. Well, alright, since we're waiting here, let's go and have a look. Misty said after thinking for a while. Alright. Jujian Sheng replied. Senior, let me lead you there. Liu Jin immediately stepped forward and said. Oh, Eunuch Liu. That's good too. Jujian Sheng immediately laughed. Another month and a half later, Star Luo Mountain Villa. Within the rolling white fog, Yang Chuan and Yi Feng were playing Go. Climb the 9-5 again, Yang Chuan said in a deep voice. Pa. A piece was placed on the 9-5 position again. Long live His Majesty. Long live His Majesty. Within the cloud sea, Yang Chuan's army cheered loudly. Their powerful aura pressed down on the cloud sea territory controlled by Yi Feng. It's the 9-5 again. Yi Feng said with a gloomy face. This time, the 9-5 was different from the previous time. At least, it wasn't like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves, but it was still slightly stronger. Yi Feng held a white piece between his index and middle fingers and was about to place it down. However, he couldn't place it down. It was as if there was a huge force forcing him not to place it down. Long live the Emperor! Long live the Emperor! The surrounding noise made Yi Feng frown. Phew! Yi Feng placed the white piece back into the bowl and stopped placing it down. Now that we've played this game of chess, you should know what you're thinking. Yang Chuan smiled. Looking at Yang Chuan, Yi Feng had a complicated look in his eyes. He gently shook his head and said, What guarantee do you have? What you said is unprecedented. How can I believe you? Chapter 204. Think about your life. You have such high intelligence. You love learning, but you are not a fool. Otherwise, you would have written books and entered the Hanlin Academy. But you did not. You are just a grand tutor. Do you like power? I think that is not the case. As the grand tutor, you arranged the chess pieces of the Yang state and doubled the size of the Yang state's territory. Double. That's not just wanton plundering. You also have to consider the patriarchs of the Immortal sects in the surrounding countries. Not only did you fight against 4 countries, you also used your intelligence to fight against 5 people from the Immortal sects. They didn't even notice. Or perhaps it's because of your methods that they didn't dare to do anything about it. Immortals? So what if they are immortals? You enjoy it. You like to set up the world. You like to manipulate chess pieces to set up a game. Yang Chuan stared at Yi Feng. I like it, but it is not enough. You are not enough to convince me. Yi Feng stared at Yang Chuan. Not enough? Then I will give you another reason why you must stay and help me. Yang Chuan smiled. Oh, Chen Feitian. Yang Chuan smiled. Yi Feng's eyes narrowed. I heard from Liu Jin that Yilin accidentally mentioned that you have a flying sky hall. In order to commemorate your dead wife, all the decorations in the hall are arranged in pairs. You must care a lot about this Chen Feitian. Yang Chuan laughed. So what if I do? Yi Feng said in a low voice. Clearly, he did not like others talking about Chen Feitian. That is easy. The Julu Academy is only an academy in the Yang realm. You actually want to join a sect that cultivates feng shui. Because a powerful feng shui master can even travel between the 2 realms. Yang Chuan said in a low voice. Travel between the 2 realms? Really? Yi Feng's expression was filled with anticipation. Traveling between the 2 realms is indeed possible, but there is a prerequisite. Yang Chuan said in a low voice. Oh. After a person dies, they may not necessarily turn into a ghost and enter the underworld. There's a greater chance that their soul will scatter, ending everything once and for all. Do you understand? Yang Chuan said in a deep voice. I don't care. If I die in this life, then so be it. If I don't die, then I will definitely make a trip to the underworld. Yi Feng said solemnly. Haha, you're oversimplifying things. It's not easy for a feng shui master to travel between the 2 realms, let alone bringing someone else along. Are you suitable to be a feng shui master? Yang Chuan asked with a smile. Yi Feng frowned. The Julu Academy may not be able to give you what you want, but I can. As long as Chen Feitian turns into a ghost, I will send you to the netherworld one day, because, in my celestial empire, all rivers flow into the sea. All lands under the heavens belong to the emperor, and all lands on the shores of the land belong to the emperor. A feng shui master must also be a subject. If you help me conquer this vast land, a large number of feng shui masters will help you open up the path of yin and yang. My celestial empire can even extend to the netherworld, commanding thousands of ghosts, and help you find Chen Feitian. What do you think? Yang Chuan said again. Yi Feng stared at Yang Chuan in shock. How can I believe you? Yi Feng's expression changed. Seeing Yi Feng's change in expression, Yang Chuan knew that he was about to succeed. After 2 months of hard work, he was finally about to convince Yi Feng. Otherwise, Yi Feng's expression would still be unchanged. Yang Chuan smiled faintly, holding the chessboard in his hand. Pa. He flipped the chessboard over. The chess pieces immediately scattered on the ground. Rumble. Dark clouds rolled in the sky, and a large number of lightning bolts struck down. The rolling lightning caused the lake water to splash in all directions, and the mist slowly dissipated under the lightning. At the side, Yi Lin stared at the chessboard with wide eyes. The game isn't over yet. Yi Lin shouted. However, Yi Feng and Yang Chuan didn't care. It was just a game of chess, so what if it was over? The rolling mist dissipated, slowly revealing the scenery by the lake. At this moment, there were thousands of people surrounding the small lake. A group of chess masters, Meng Rongrong's 6, the Dugu Sword Emperor, Yang Wudi, Yang Emperor, Hua Guang, Liu Jin, Dan Qingzi, Zhujiansheng's 8, and Miss Z. Behind Hua Guang, there were nearly 3,000 members of the embroidered uniform army. After leaving for more than 2 months, the 3,000 members of the embroidered uniform army had all returned. "Greetings, my king." The 3,000 members of the embroidered uniform army bowed respectfully. At the side, Yang Emperor's expression changed. "King? Not the Lord?" He hadn't abdicated yet. Yang Emperor was infuriated, but he suppressed the anger in his heart. "How did it go?" Yang Chuan placed his hands behind his back and looked at the 3,000 embroidered uniform army. Ka. Nearly 500 embroidered uniform army soldiers each took out a box from behind them. The box slowly opened, revealing bloody human heads inside. "The heads of the Chu Kingdom's emperor, royalty, and officials are here. The heads of the Han Kingdom's emperor, royalty, and officials are here. The heads of the Wei Kingdom's emperor, royalty, and officials are here," the group of embroidered uniform army soldiers reported. "What?" Yang Emperor exclaimed immediately. "The heads of the emperor, royalty, and officials are here." Yang Emperor knew that the embroidered uniform army had gone out on a mission and had just returned, but no one expected them to do such a thing. Was this considered the destruction of the 3 dynasties? The 3 dynasties that were as famous as the Yang state were all destroyed. Yang Emperor could not believe it. However, Yang Emperor was too familiar with the portraits of these heads. Yang Emperor had already overestimated the might of the embroidered uniform army. However, he did not expect the embroidered uniform army to be so terrifying. In the past 2 months, they actually managed to charge into the 3 dynasties' capitals and kill the people with the highest authority. On the other side, Dan Qingzi also looked at the heads in shock. At the same time, he looked at Yang Chuan and felt a chill. Yang Chuan's insults from the past were still vivid in his mind. "He is not insulting me. Is he telling the truth?" Dan Qingzi felt a chill in his heart. These 500 people decided the military affairs of the 3 dynasties. Over the years, they caused the deaths of nearly 500,000 soldiers and soldiers of the Yang state. Now, they are all dead. "Do you think you can trust me now?" Yang Chuan said with a smile. Yi Feng slightly closed his eyes as he faced everyone, as if immersed in a final mental struggle. "Yi Feng, since the game of Go is over, you should give me an answer," Meng Rongrong said sullenly. Chapter 205. "Yi Feng, since the game is over, you should give me an answer," Meng Rongrong said in a low voice. Meng Rongrong stepped forward. In the past 2 months, Meng Rongrong had experienced a sense of defeat that she had never felt before. From absolute confidence in the beginning, to irritation in her heart, to worry about her gains and losses, Meng Rongrong was also a strong chess player. Although she might not be better than Yang Chuan and Yi Feng, she could at least understand the game. As the chess pieces were placed, Meng Rongrong seemed to have noticed the change in Yi Feng's mentality. Change? Was the Julu Academy really that good? Could it not be better than a tiny Yang state? What kind of joke was this? Yi Feng still had his eyes closed, but Yang Chuan looked at Meng Rongrong. Yang Chuan did not speak. He only smiled slightly, but this smile was like a slap to Meng Rongrong's face. Meng Rongrong snorted and ignored Yang Chuan. At this moment, Yi Feng's eyes slowly opened. "Thank you for your kindness, senior. This old one is old and does not want to suffer anymore. I just want to live out my remaining years in peace," Yi Feng said. His voice was calm, revealing his inner peace. "What? Yi Feng, what did you say?" "Think carefully," Changqing exclaimed. "Are you crazy? Do you really want to die?" Meng Rongrong had a premonition, but Changqing and the other 4 were not prepared. They were stunned by Yi Feng's words. Grandpa, what are you doing? They want to help you become an immortal, why don't you?" Behind him, Yi Lin suddenly exclaimed. "Grandpa has his own plans when he does things. Don't interrupt," Yi Feng said indifferently. But, Yi Lin was going crazy. "Alright, Grandpa isn't as smart as you," Yi Feng said calmly. Oh. Yi Lin calmed down immediately. That's right, in the Yi family, who would dare to say that they were smarter than Yi Feng? Although Yi Lin had thousands of ideas in his heart, compared to his grandfather's wisdom, he could forget about it. What benefits did Yang Chuan give you? Or rather, how did he force you? Meng Rongrong was still unwilling to give up. Yang Chuan smiled. Miss Meng, you're framing me. Shut up. Meng Rongrong scolded. Meng Rongrong was defeated for the first time in her life. Meng Rongrong could not believe it and was unwilling to accept it. Shut up. Miss Meng, don't forget what you said before. You're the young mistress of the Julu Academy. Do you need me to teach you the word trust? Yang Chuan shouted. You. Meng Rongrong was speechless at Yang Chuan's words. Back then, she had personally promised Yang Chuan that as long as Yi Feng was unwilling to go to the Julu Academy, she would not force him. But now, Yi Feng also shook his head. Senior, this is my own idea. I'm sorry. Did you hear that? Yang Chuan said in a low voice. Meng Rongrong's expression changed. Even though she was wearing a bamboo hat, from her clenched fists, one could see the indignation in her heart. Let's go. Meng Rongrong said in a low voice. Yes. Changqing and the others replied. With a wave of her sleeve, Meng Rongrong led the 5 of them into the sky. As they flew, Meng Rongrong turned her head and gave Yang Chuan a deep look, deeply engraving this hateful fellow into her memory. Then, she led the 5 of them away. After Meng Rongrong left, Dan Qingzi called out. Yang Chuan, where's my junior apprentice brother? Dan Qingzi called out. As soon as Dan Qingzi called out, his 7 friends also stepped forward, looking as if they were about to confront Yang Chuan. Dan Qingzi and the others stepped forward. Zhu Jiansheng also stepped forward with his 7 junior apprentice brothers, guarding against Dan Qingzi's sudden attack. Chapter 206. Yang Chuan glanced at Dan Qingzi, then turned to Yang Emperor. Yang Qiuyu, have you handed over the 42 cities? Yang Chuan asked. Yes. Yang Emperor nodded. Millimeter. Yang Chuan nodded. Did you hear that? Zhang has kept its promise. Let them go. Dan Qingzi shouted. Hu Guang. Let them go. Yang Chuan didn't press the issue. Yes, I've brought them here. I'll bring them out immediately, Hu Guang answered. With a wave of his hand, the embroidered uniform soldiers quickly walked out of the valley. Soon, the 3 prison carriages were pulled into the valley. Prison carriages? Dan Qingzi recognized them at a glance. Shiying. He quickly lifted the curtains of the prison carriages, revealing the 3 people inside. Liu Gang, 3rd senior brother, and the Crown Prince of Zheng. Liu Gang and the Crown Prince of Zheng were handcuffed and shackled. They didn't seem to have suffered much. The only one who had suffered was the 3rd senior brother. His shoulder blade had been pierced, and he couldn't move at all. 1st senior brother. Liu Gang cried out in surprise. Senior, the Crown Prince of Zheng said excitedly. 1st senior brother, save me, save me. The 3rd senior brother was so emotional that tears were coming out of his eyes. This period of imprisonment was a darkness that 3rd senior brother had never experienced in his life. Shiying. 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 Dan Qingzi's friends stabbed their swords, instantly tearing the cage apart. 1st senior brother. Quick, take me away. The 3rd senior brother grabbed Dan Qingzi after being saved. He wasn't in the mood for revenge, only the fear of leaving this place as soon as possible. His mind seemed to be in a daze. Your junior brother is too cowardly. Piercing his shoulder blade will only hurt for a while. It's not like we tortured him. Look at how scared he is. Also, I've already sent someone to inform the prison to release the others. My Yang state will prepare horses and rations for them to return to their countries. Hu Guang said disdainfully. That's not torture. Dan Qingzi shouted angrily. Yang Chuan said indifferently, take your men and leave. You. Yang Chuan. You bastard. Your entire family will die a horrible death. Dan Qingzi cursed. Yang Chuan's eyes turned cold and murderous. Pa. Suddenly, a purple light flashed, and a crisp sound rang out from Dan Qingzi's face. A slap landed on Dan Qingzi's face. It was so powerful that half of Dan Qingzi's face swelled up. Who is it? Dan Qingzi was so anxious that he immediately roared in the direction of the slap. Turning his head, he happened to see a purple-robed woman wearing a golden mask, revealing a pair of eyes that were staring coldly at him. At first, he was anxious, but in an instant, he felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over him. Dan Qingzi's face trembled as he looked at the woman in fear. Misty, why did you hit me? Dan Qingzi, if I hear you curse Yang Chuan again, I'll take your life. The woman in purple said coldly. Ah! Dan Qingzi opened his mouth in shock. Dan Qingzi did not understand why Miss Z was protecting Yang Chuan. However, today, Dan Qingzi once again experienced the grievance of that day. Why? Why are you protecting him? Dan Qingzi said resentfully. There's no reason. Now, take your men and scram. The woman in purple said coldly. I. Dan Qingzi was at a loss for words. At this moment, Dan Qingzi did not know what to say. This matter was too inexplicable. The woman in purple walked towards Dan Qingzi step by step. As she approached, the expressions of Dan Qingzi's friends changed drastically, and they quickly retreated. Leaving Dan Qingzi alone was like a lone boat on the ocean, facing a storm. Chapter 207. She didn't give off any aura as she walked closer. Miss Z, don't come any closer. I know I was wrong. We'll leave immediately. Dan Qingzi shouted. Miss Z stopped when she heard Dan Qingzi's shout. Let's go. Dan Qingzi felt quite unwilling as he led everyone out. He walked incredibly quickly, grabbing 3 people and leaping out of the valley. Before he left, he didn't forget to glare at Yang Chuan with hatred. Yang Chuan just smiled at this look and turned to look at Miss Z in surprise. She didn't give off any killing intent or aura. Dan Qingzi and the others were scared out of their wits. Also, Zhu Jiansheng and the others seemed to know Miss Z, but they were also avoiding her. What were they afraid of? Yang Chuan looked at Miss Z strangely, then turned to the Dugu Sword Emperor and Yang Wudi. Have you paid your respects to the Dugu Sword Emperor? Yang Chuan smiled. Yes, I have. I feel much better now. This time, I brought Wudi back to say goodbye. Everyone else has said their goodbyes. You are the only one left. I didn't expect to see such a big game of chess before leaving. Dugu Zhenwang said with a smile. Congratulations, you've put down one of your worries. Yang Chuan smiled. The Dugu Sword Emperor nodded. Yes, I've put down some of my worries. Don't worry, I'll do what I promised you. I'll bring Wudi back to the Dugu family soon. Millimeter. Yang Chuan nodded and turned to Yang Wudi. Uncle Wang, thank you, Yang Wudi said sincerely. Liu Jin. Yang Chuan called. Yes. Liu Jin quickly took out a bag. She handed it to Yang Wudi. Puzzled, Yang Wudi took the bundle and gently opened it. There were 50 books inside. Books? Yang Wudi was slightly taken aback. These are the 50 most authentic books on the art of war in the Yang state. I approve of you following the Dugu Sword Emperor to learn the art of the sword. However, I also have a request for you. Yang Chuan said solemnly. Uncle Wang, please speak. I don't want you to become a dead sword. I want you to become a divine sword with wisdom and thoughts. I've read these 50 books. They contain a lot of military tactics and psychological warfare. They won't be of much help to your cultivation, but they will definitely be beneficial to your intelligence. My request is that you memorize all of these 50 books. Remember, understand them thoroughly. Yang Chuan said in a low voice. Yang Wudi looked at the 50 books. His expression changed. Yang Wudi could feel Yang Chuan's kindness. It was a kindness that was truly for his own good. After taking a deep breath, Yang Wudi bowed deeply to Yang Chuan. Uncle Wang, don't worry. I will remember Uncle Wang's words. Yang Wudi said solemnly. Yang Emperor's expression was complicated. Even his son didn't seem to respect him that much. All right, you can go now. Yang Chuan nodded in satisfaction. Dugu Sword Emperor, we'll meet again. Yang Chuan said with a smile. We'll meet again. The Dugu Sword Emperor nodded. He waved his sleeves and took Yang Wudi to the sky. They disappeared into the horizon in the blink of an eye. At this moment, a small boat arrived at the island in the middle of the lake. Yang Chuan, Yi Feng, and Yi Lin boarded the small boat and slowly sailed to the shore. They reached the shore. Yang Chuan, did you ask the Grand Tutor to come out of seclusion? Yang Emperor stepped forward and asked with a smile. Yi Feng smiled and said, Yang Emperor, you must be joking. I'm old. How can I come out of seclusion? Hey! Yang Emperor was slightly stunned. Yi Feng and I only played a game of chess. Yang Qiuyu, don't think too much. Yang Chuan said with a smile. Ah! Yang Emperor was stunned again. Then, Yang Emperor felt depressed. Even a fool could see that Yi Feng gave up on entering the Immortal sect to help Yang Chuan. Now, he actually said that he didn't want to enter the Yang state. I've used up too much energy these days. I need to go back and rest. Goodbye, Yi Feng said with a smile. As he spoke, Yi Feng and Yi Lin walked into the depths of the valley with the help of a group of household servants. They left behind an embarrassed Yang Emperor. Chapter 208. Yang Qiuyu. Yang Chuan said with a smile. Yang Emperor looked at Yang Chuan. Chu State, Wei State, and Korea State are without a leader at this moment. Yang Chuan said with a smile. Yang Emperor suddenly widened his eyes and looked at Yang Chuan in surprise. Previously, he was only surprised by the strength of the embroidered uniform army. Now, Yang Emperor understood what Yang Chuan meant. Without a leader, the three kingdoms were like dragons without a leader. It was the best time to attack cities and seize territory. I understand, haha. Yang Emperor suddenly laughed. I'll have to trouble you from now on, Yang Chuan said with a smile. Don't worry, I'll do my best and wait for your return. Okay. Yang Chuan nodded. Is the Grand Preceptor really not coming out? If he comes out, he will definitely help our Yang state to conquer the three countries faster, Yang Emperor said after thinking for a while. No need, the Grand Preceptor is too old. Let's not disturb him anymore. Yang Chuan shook his head. All right. Yang Emperor nodded. I've just finished a game of chess. I'll rest here for a while. Before going to the Day sect, I'll go to Yangjing to say goodbye to you. Yang Chuan looked at Yang Emperor and said. Okay. Then I'll go back and hold a court meeting. Yang Emperor nodded. After sending off Yang Emperor, Yang Chuan looked at the 8 people of the Day sect and the woman in purple again. Yang Chuan, you're amazing. I didn't expect you to make such a big move in this game of chess. Ha ha ha. Zhu Jiansheng suddenly laughed. Not bad, I've never seen anything like this before. One of Zhu Jiansheng's junior brothers laughed. These are... Yang Chuan looked at the crowd. Them. He's my junior brother. Wherever he goes, there are 7 of us. The 7 swordsmen of the Day sect. This is the great swordsman, the second swordsman, the third swordsman, the 7th swordsman, Zhu Jiansheng said with a smile. Senior brother. The 7 of them immediately blushed. Ha ha ha, didn't you like this name? Just call me that, it's fine. Anyway, you're used to being called that. Zhu Jiansheng laughed. The 7 of them felt helpless, but from their expressions, there was a sense of complacency. Yang Chuan was slightly startled. Sure enough, birds of a feather flocked together. Zhu Jiansheng was a free and unrestrained person, but the 7 swordsmen were very narcissistic. Greetings, 7 swordsmen, Yang Chuan said with a smile. You're welcome, you're welcome. The 7 of them exchanged pleasantries. And this is... Yang Chuan looked at the purple-clothed woman with a golden mask. Misty. Zhu Jiansheng looked at Yang Chuan with a strange expression. Misty spoke first. I'll go back to my residence in Yangjing first. Yang Chuan, after you've rested, come and see me. I have something to tell you. With that, Misty turned around and walked out of the valley. Yang Chuan was puzzled. Zhu Jiansheng and the others watched Misty leave, then looked at Yang Chuan with a strange expression. What's wrong? Who is she? Yang Chuan asked with a puzzled expression. No way, Yang Chuan, have you really forgotten? She's your wife. Zhu Jiansheng said with a strange expression. Ah. Yang Chuan, who had always been calm, was also confused by the question. What was going on? Wife. It's normal that Dan Qingzi doesn't know. It's also normal that we don't know. After all, she has always been very mysterious and never went to the day sect. But we all know that you have a fiancé, no, a child bride. It seems that when you were young, your parents arranged this marriage for you. Don't you remember? Zhu Jiansheng said with a strange expression. That's right, I only found out 2 months ago that Miss Z is actually your fiancé. Awesome. The great swordsman gloated. Yes, Junior Yang Chuan, tell me, what were your thoughts when you had a wife when you were young? Second swordsman laughed. Chapter 209. Let's not talk about your childhood. What are your thoughts now? The 5 swordsmen laughed. The group of people from the Immortal sect was now asking Yang Chuan curiously. Hu Guang, Liu Jin, and the others had strange expressions on their faces. Go, don't disturb the Lord. Hu Guang ordered the embroidered uniform army to leave. At the same time, he asked the chess masters to leave. Yang Chuan was also confused. Fiancé. After taking a deep breath, Yang Chuan said, I have forgotten most of my memories. Can you help me recall? Yes, you have soulless syndrome. The 4 swordsmen raised their eyebrows. Sigh, what a pity. This is the first time I've seen someone with a child bride. I really want to know how he feels. The 7 swordsmen said regretfully. Black lines appeared on Yang Chuan's forehead. This group of people were quite sanctimonious when they didn't open their mouths, but now that they opened their mouths, why, alright, stop fooling around. Zhu Jiansheng shouted. Oh. The 7 people nodded. Yang Chuan, you really don't remember? I don't remember. Yang Chuan nodded. Yes, you should have been very young back then. Your mother should have arranged this marriage for you. We all heard a little about it, but we didn't know who it was. 2 months ago, I heard that Dan Qingzi was going to bring people to make trouble for you at the drunken Immortal restaurant. I scolded him and then gathered these 7 junior brothers to protect you in advance. Zhu Jiansheng said solemnly. Oh, thank you very much. Yang Chuan nodded. Who knew that Miss Z would find out about that quarrel? Later on, she came to find me and showed me a certificate that your father had left behind. She asked me to bring her to see you. Zhu Jiansheng said solemnly. Oh. When I returned to the sect, I met the sect leader and all the uncles in the sect. They confirmed that Miss Z is indeed your fiancé. Fiancé? Yang Chuan had a strange expression on his face. Yes. Zhu Jiansheng nodded solemnly. When I saw you before, you were all afraid of her. Why? Yang Chuan asked curiously. The 7 swordsmen's expressions changed almost at the same time. What's wrong? Yang Chuan asked again. Zhu Jiansheng smiled bitterly. Looking at Yang Chuan, he seemed to be unable to say anything, he thought, then sighed. Well. Alright, so be it. I'll tell you. But this is just my personal opinion. You must not tell Miss Z. Zhu Jiansheng laughed bitterly. Yes. Yang Chuan nodded. No one knows what Miss Z's full name is. We only know that she's called Miss Z and lives in Carefree City. Carefree City is similar to a city in the mortal world, but it's many times stronger. There are many shops opened by cultivators in the city. The sky-shaking bow, sun-shooting arrows, sky-piercing spear, etc. that you want were all bought by me in Carefree City, Zhu Jiansheng explained. Carefree City? Yes, continue. Miss Z has been living in Carefree City for more than 10 years. I've never heard of any power behind her, but in the entire Carefree City, no one dares to offend her, Zhu Jiansheng said. Oh. Why? She's. Zhu Jiansheng looked awkward, as if he couldn't say it. Say it, it's fine. I won't blame you. Yang Chuan shook his head. Yes, Miss Z's cultivation isn't high, but no one dares to go near her. Because, whoever goes near her will be unlucky. No one can tell why, Zhu Jiansheng said strangely. Chapter 210. Oh. For example, Dan Qingzi is also a lecher. Once, he saw Miss Z. She was wearing a mask, but Dan Qingzi saw that her figure was better, so he recklessly approached her. just when he was about 10 feet away from Miss Z. Suddenly, Zhu Jiansheng's eyes widened. What's wrong? Yang Chuan asked curiously. A huge hammer suddenly fell from the sky and hit Dan Qing's head. You don't know how tragic that scene was. A large part of Dan Qing's scalp was smashed off, and his face was badly mutilated. Half of his body was smashed into the ground, and he was on the verge of death. It was a fight between two experts, and Dan Qingzi was unlucky enough to be hit by it, Zhu Jiansheng said. Ah! Yang Chuan asked curiously. That's not all. Anyone who gets close to Miss Z, regardless of whether they have good intentions or bad intentions, doesn't have a good ending. Truly, they are all undeserved disasters, inexplicable disasters, Zhu Jiansheng said. Such a thing happened. Is it a coincidence? Yang Chuan frowned. Coincidence? It's a coincidence, but it's all a coincidence. It happens 100 times a year. Even if one doesn't get unlucky on the spot, it won't be long before they get unlucky. It's too strange. The three swordsmen trembled. Is there such a thing? Of course, it happened to me once. That day, I bought a bottle of elixirs in a shop. At that time, I saw the shop assistants hiding from me in fear. I didn't know what was going on until I turned my head and realized that they weren't hiding from me, but from Miss Z. Because someone concluded that as long as they stayed 2 feet away from Miss Z, they wouldn't be affected, but I was only 10 feet away from her. Do you know what 10 feet is? Cold sweat appeared on the three swordsmen's forehead. 10 feet. What happened after that? Everyone looked at the three swordsmen. I was fine at that time, but a month later, my disaster came, the three swordsmen said with a sad face. What disaster? I spent 10 years of my savings to buy 3 bottles of pills, but they're all fakes. My long sword made of mysterious platinum was broken when I was killing a trash demon. I was also involved in a fight between 2 immortal state experts for no reason. I was chased by the 2 immortal state experts and got lost in the territory of a immortal state demonic beast. That demonic beast made me. That's right. That's why I'm not a human anymore. The most hateful thing is that my lover of 80 years actually eloped with a kid in the essence stage. My God, that kid is ugly, poor, and useless. She's blind. The three swordsmen recalled with a face full of grief and hatred. Zhu Jiansheng and the others looked at them with pity. The three swordsmen were too pitiful. Yang Chuan had a strange expression on his face as he said, maybe it's a coincidence. What coincidence? I'm not the only one. Many people have the same experience. Wherever Miss Z goes, it's like a big explosion, blowing up everyone. The three swordsmen shook their heads and said, yes, that's why Dan Qingzi was so scared when he saw Miss Z. The great swordsman said, I heard that Miss Z is the reincarnation of a jinx. I've heard that Miss Z is a cursed loner. I heard that Miss Z is the reincarnation of a jinx. Everyone was talking about Miss Z in fear. That's enough. Yang Chuan frowned. Everyone suddenly became quiet and looked at Yang Chuan. No matter what, Miss Z is my fiancée. Let's end the introduction here. Yang Chuan shook his head and said, okay. Everyone nodded and stopped talking. Yang Chuan, I know it's wrong to talk about someone's fiancé behind their back, but what we said is true. She's really strange. I just want to remind you. Zhu Jiansheng said seriously. Okay, I know. Yang Chuan nodded. Chapter 211. After seeing off Zhu Jiansheng and the 7 swordsmen, Yang Chuan stood at the entrance of the valley and frowned as if he was thinking about Miss Z. Liu Jin and Hua Guang once again came to visit Jiyu Zhonggu's residence in the valley. Zhao family, Zhao Tianwang has established a country and ascended to the throne? Yang Chuan asked in a deep voice. Hua Guang nodded. Yes, poisoners' belongings. They split up and took them away. We got half of it, and the other half was taken away by Zhao Tianwang. We were originally going to chase after them, but after thinking about it, we decided to let the king make the decision. Well done. Since he's going, he's going. Yang Chuan smiled. Don't chase after them. Hua Guang was slightly stunned. Chu, Han, and Wei have been destroyed. I was originally worried that the Yang state and Zheng state would fight each other in the end and give up on the Great Land. Now that the 3 new states of Yang, Zhao, and Zheng have been established, there will be a lot of work ahead. Yang Chuan said with a smile. Oh, that's right. Hu Guang immediately understood. Yang Chuan nodded with satisfaction. Hu Guang finally understood. My king, we have obtained 3 items from Poisoner's Relic. Your Majesty, please take a look. Hu Guang immediately said. Then, he placed 3 plates covered by curtains in front of him in front of Yang Chuan. When the curtain was lifted, 3 items were revealed. The first plate was a silver compass. The needle was trembling slightly. There were 18 circles on the compass, and each circle was independent of each other. It was as if they could all rotate. Silver compass. Looks like Poisoner's attainments in feng shui are pretty good, Yang Chuan said solemnly. On the second plate was a small black ball. Astral fog. King, we've seen the compass before. What is this fog? Hu Guang asked curiously. Do you remember Ding Wugu's protective shield? Yang Chuan smiled. Of course I remember. Back then, he smashed a small ball, and then a large amount of black gas covered himself. No matter how we shot arrows, we couldn't get inside. It was as if there was a wall of gas blocking us. Could this be it? Hu Guang's eyes lit up. That's right, this is it. However, this is much more advanced than Ding Wugu's astral fog. Yang Chuan said with a smile. At least this trip was worth it, Hu Guang said with a smile. On the last plate was a green flower. Its petals were extremely large and emitted a faint green light. This is the blue-faced flower. It's a type of food for practitioners. Don't be fooled by its small size. If you eat it, it's equivalent to eating a Qi Jing demonic beast. Yang Chuan smiled. Qi state demonic beast. Green-faced flower? Hu Guang asked in surprise. Yang Chuan said, leave this flower for Yi Feng. When we reach the cultivation world, we'll have plenty to eat. Everything is up to the king. 2 days later, in the middle valley of the Star Luo Villa. In the pavilion by the lake. Yang Chuan sat in front of a chessboard and drank tea. Liu Jin and Hu Guang stood behind him. Yi Lin looked outside the pavilion nervously. Outside the pavilion, Yi Feng's body was covered in a layer of blue stellar energy. He spread out his arms and sensed his surroundings. In the sky, a dark cloud was facing Yi Feng. Boom, boom, boom. Bolts of lightning struck down from the dark clouds, bombarding Yi Feng. However, the green aura around Yi Feng's body blocked the impact of the lightning again and again. Boom. After the 9th thunder, the last bolt of heavenly thunder struck down. The dark clouds in the sky slowly dispersed. The green gang qi around Yi Feng had already disappeared. He stood there motionlessly, as if he was comprehending the experience of this tribulation. First heaven's lightning tribulation, past? Grandpa is in the essence realm. Grandpa is in the essence realm. Yi Lin trembled in surprise. Chapter 212. Yi Lin understood that once Yi Feng became powerful, the Yi family would rise as well. Yi family? The head of a cultivation family? Yi Lin was so excited that he couldn't control himself. Phew. After a while, Yi Feng let out a long breath and slowly opened his eyes. Grandpa, there's a small tuft of black hair in your white hair, Yi Lin said happily. Yi Feng's heart was also surging. The essence realm? Was it really the essence realm? This is just the beginning. It won't be long before your white hair turns black and your wrinkles disappear, Yang Chuan said with a smile. Taking a deep breath, Yi Feng stepped into the pavilion. Thank you, Your Majesty. Yi Feng bowed solemnly. You deserve it. I happen to have one too. Otherwise, I would have been embarrassed to persuade you, Yang Chuan said with a smile and gestured for Yi Feng to sit down. Yi Feng sat down slowly and said, I guess that Your Majesty must have something that can help me break through. Yang Chuan smiled and said, I'm going to join the Day sect soon. I'll leave the world to you. To what extent does Your Majesty need me to do? Yi Feng looked at the chessboard in front of him and asked calmly. Chu, Han, and Wei, without a leader, the 3 countries will rise up and become warlords. It will be a period of great chaos, Yang Chuan said in a low voice. That's right. Although Zheng has lost 42 cities, the three countries will have greater opportunities because they have no leader. Therefore, we don't have to worry about Zheng for the time being. As for the new Zhao country, it will be expanding its territory and fighting everywhere. The Yang state will be the same. It will be an era of war when the three countries rise up and fight everywhere, Yang Chuan said in a low voice. That's right. My thoughts are the same as your majesties. Yifeng nodded. You don't have to participate in the politics of the three countries, but you have to participate in all of their affairs, Yang Chuan said in a low voice. Oh. Your disciples and old men are all over the world. What you need to do right now is to place your disciples and old men in the important positions in the major cities of the three kingdoms like a game of chess. It doesn't matter whether they are rebellious, treacherous, loyal, or treacherous, as long as they occupy all the important positions and wait for my return. When we return, what I want is to unify the mortal world in this region in the shortest time possible, like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. It's the entirety of this region, Yang Chuan said solemnly. You want to unify the 5 nations? Yi Lin asked in surprise. Lin, don't interrupt. Yifeng said solemnly. Oh. Yi Lin still looked at Yang Chuan in surprise. 5 countries. Yang Chuan's appetite was too big. I'll leave this green-faced flower for you to eat. Eat it 1 slice at a time. Also, in the years to come, I'll send people to deliver you everything you need in the world of cultivation. Records, medicinal pills, magical treasures, demonic beasts, techniques, everything you need. Count it as your salary, Yang Chuan said. Yes. Yifeng stood up and bowed solemnly. Lastly, I want to emphasize one more thing, Yang Chuan said solemnly. In the entire 3 kingdoms, you are the most important. When things are impossible, you can abandon everything. As long as you are fine, we can start over again, Yang Chuan said solemnly. Yifeng looked solemnly at Yang Chuan and said emotionally, I understand. It's good that you understand. We're leaving. Take care. Yang Chuan stood up and said. The world of cultivation is filled with countless obstacles. King, take care, Yifeng said. Don't worry. I'm more familiar with the world of cultivation. Yang Chuan smiled. As they spoke, the group walked out of the valley under Yifeng's escort. Chapter 213. Outside the valley, 3,000 members of the Brigade Yi army were waiting respectfully. Yang Chuan mounted his horse. Let's go. Giddy up. Giddy up. Giddy up. Giddy up. Yang Chuan led the cavalry and rode away, stirring up a cloud of dust. At the entrance of the valley, Yifeng bowed solemnly to the departing troops. When my king returns, the 3 countries will be united, Yifeng said to himself. In a restaurant in Yangjing, all the guests were asked to leave. The Brigade Yi army was guarding the place, making it a forbidden area. In the restaurant, Zhujian Sheng and the 7 swordsmen looked at Yang Chuan. Miss Z is waiting for you in the back courtyard, the great swordsman said. Okay. Yang Chuan nodded and was about to step in. Remember, 2 feet, you must be 2 feet away from her, Zhujian Sheng emphasized again. Yang Chuan smiled faintly and walked into the inner courtyard. In the small courtyard, Miss Z, who was wearing a golden mask, sat quietly at a stone table. On the stone table, there was a brush, ink, paper, and an inkstone, as well as a pot of wine and 2 small cups. The mouth of the mask seemed to be able to open and close automatically. Even with the mask, Miss Z could drink the wine alone. He was drinking wine alone, as if he was thinking about something. Yang Chuan had already arrived at the small courtyard. He stood at the door and looked at Miss Z quietly. Looking at Miss Z drinking alone, Yang Chuan felt a sense of loneliness. The loneliness emitted from Miss Z. Phew. Miss Z seemed to think of something regrettable and sighed slightly. With this sigh, Miss Z also noticed Yang Chuan. She saw that Yang Chuan was standing at the door and did not come over. Her eyes, which were exposed by the mask, revealed a complicated look. In the end, no one could avoid the 2 feet barrier, Even Yang Chuan was standing 2 feet away. Miss Z smiled bitterly. "You're here?" Miss Z's voice was slightly bitter. "I'm here." Yang Chuan nodded and stepped forward. He walked towards the stone table. "What are you doing?" Miss Z glared at him. Yang Chuan didn't say anything and just continued to walk forward. Had he stepped into the range of 20 feet? Had he stepped into the range of 20 feet? "Don't come over, don't come over," Miss Z exclaimed and quickly stood up. "Sit down, I'm already within 20 feet. Yang Chuan said with a smile. You, how can you still laugh?" Miss Z shouted angrily. When Yang Chuan was 2 jong away, he hoped that Yang Chuan would be able to step into the 2 jong range. But when Yang Chuan really did step into the 2 jong range, he hated that he couldn't let Yang Chuan quickly retreat 2 jong away. However, Yang Chuan did not back down. Step by step, he walked to the stone table. "Sit down, don't stare at me." Yang Chuan laughed. "Didn't Zhu Jiansheng and the others tell you about me?" Miss Z was confused. "I, Yang Chuan, have great fortune. How can anything happen to me?" Yang Chuan made a gesture of inviting her to sit down again. "No, you don't understand. This is fate. No one can escape from it." Miss Z sat down bitterly. "Speaking of which, I can't remember a lot of things before last year, including my parents and you," Yang Chuan said. "I know, you have lost your soul. Your mother once asked an expert to examine you. The problem comes from your soul, not from the invasion of evil. After a long time, you will recover one day." Miss Z nodded and said, "Oh." Yang Chuan looked at Miss Z curiously. "As for me, you definitely don't remember. We only met once. At that time, you were only 1 year old, and I was 10. I remember you, but you can't remember me. At that time, you were." Miss Z recalled with a sweet voice. Yang Chuan smiled quietly. Miss Z seemed to find that her thoughts were wandering. She immediately came back to her senses and stared at Yang Chuan in silence. "Why didn't you say anything? Yang Chuan, Zhu Jiansheng and the others should have told you about my evil. It was you and my parents who arranged the marriage. I won't force you. You write a letter of divorce, and we are even." Miss Z bit her lips and said coldly. Chapter 214. Yang Chuan, I'm sure Zhu Jiansheng and the others have told you about my curses. Back then, it was you and my parents who decided on our marriage. I won't force you. Just write a letter of divorce and we'll be even. Lady Z bit her lips and said coldly. Yang Chuan picked up a cup of wine from the stone table and took a sip. He frowned slightly. I've already prepared the brush and ink, Lady Z said in a deep voice. Staring at Lady Z, Yang Chuan paused for a moment and said, I still don't know. What's your name? Lady Z smiled wryly. My name is ZZ. Write it. Lady Z closed her eyes. Yang Chuan didn't take the brush. He shook his head and said, I don't know how to write it. ZZ opened her eyes. Why? ZZ didn't understand and looked at Yang Chuan. I don't remember the past, but I know that you're Yang Chuan's fiancé. I don't know what my parents were thinking, but I know that from then on, our fates were linked. This is a responsibility. It's not something I can throw away just because I want to. In this, you've poured 16 years of your feelings into it. Yang Chuan stared at ZZ and said, no matter if it's something I asked for or something my parents forced on me, a responsibility is a responsibility. I, Yang Chuan, can't just brush it off cleanly. I, Yang Chuan, can't do it. I can't do it. In my impression, this is the first time we met in Xingluo Mountain Villa. In my heart, I don't have any feelings for you. If you don't have any feelings, I, Yang Chuan, won't force you to do anything. But I have a responsibility. At the very least, I can't abandon you. But ZZ frowned and said, no, let me finish first. Yang Chuan stopped ZZ. I've been thinking about the curses that they talked about. I've guessed a possibility. Perhaps, you've been cursed by some kind of powerful curse. I've heard that some of the demon race's innate talents have some curse arts. You might have been hit by one of them, Yang Chuan said solemnly. Curse? ZZ was slightly stunned. That's right. It's very likely to be a kind of curse. Moreover, it's a huge curse. This kind of huge curse is linked to the heavens and earth. It even requires the sacrifice of a demon immortal for the curse to succeed. Yang Chuan said in a deep voice. Really? Zizi's voice trembled slightly. That's right. Before your curse is lifted, you will always be my fiancé. With me around, no one will dare to look down on you. You won't be so lonely anymore. Yang Chuan took a deep breath and said. But, don't you know? Everyone says that I'm a jinx. Whoever treats me well will die very quickly. My mother died after giving birth to me. My father died because of me when I was 10 years old. Your parents might have died because of me too. Break the curse. I don't know how long you'll have to wait, but you'll also. Zizi said fearfully. Aren't I still fine? Don't worry, I'm blessed. I won't die. I haven't finished speaking. Yang Chuan smiled. Go on. I'll think of a way to lift your curse. I'll think of a way. Before it's lifted, you'll always be my fiancé. After it's lifted, you'll no longer be called a jinx. At that time, if you're willing, you can come to me at any time. Just let me know, and I'll dissolve the marriage and let you seek your own happiness. Yang Chuan said solemnly. What did you say? Zizi stared at Yang Chuan without blinking. She couldn't believe it. Earlier, I saw your loneliness, and I can also feel it. For more than 20 years, you have no friends, no family, and everyone fled when they saw you. It should be the despair of being abandoned by the whole world, Yang Chuan said after thinking for a while. Chapter 215. How do you know? Zizi's eyes did not blink. Because I'm your fiancé. Don't be afraid. You won't be alone in the future. You still have me. Even if the whole world despises you, I'll still be with you. Yang Chuan smiled. Looking at Yang Chuan's smile, Zizi bit her lips so hard that they were about to bleed. That's all. I still have things to deal with outside. We'll go back to the Defy sect in a while. Yang Chuan smiled and stood up. Zizi looked at Yang Chuan and did not say anything. By the way, your wine is really good. Yang Chuan smiled as he turned around and walked towards the entrance of the courtyard. Looking at Yang Chuan's calm back, 2 streaks of tears streaked down her mask. In the restaurant, Zhujian Sheng and the 7 swordsmen were pacing back and forth, their faces full of anxiety. Who? Yang Chuan stepped in. Yang Chuan, you're out. That's great. Zhujian Sheng ran over immediately. Yang Chuan, are you okay? The 3 swordsmen scratched Yang Chuan as if checking if he was missing an arm or a leg. Yes, she's a jinx. Yang Chuan, stay away from her. The reincarnation of a jinx. Yang Chuan, you're definitely out of luck this time. Everyone continued to criticize, but Yang Chuan raised his eyebrows. Everyone? Yang Chuan said in a deep voice. Huh? Everyone was slightly stunned. Thank you for your help to Yang Chuan last time, but I still want to emphasize one thing, Yang Chuan said in a deep voice. Oh. The misty you're talking about is my fiancé. As long as I'm alive, anyone who calls her heavenly cursed star, reincarnated star of calamity, god of plague, and so on will be my enemy, Yang Chuan said coldly. Ah! The 8 of them gaped in shock. Zhujian Sheng and the 7 swordsmen had strange expressions on their faces. In the end, Zhujian Sheng was the first to speak. All right, from now on, I won't tell anyone. Yang Chuan smiled warmly. In the rear courtyard, Misty suddenly raised her head. Her originally black eyes suddenly turned purple. Under her purple eyes, the walls in front of her seemed to become transparent. Separated by a few walls, Misty could clearly see everything in the restaurant. Hearing Yang Chuan's words, Misty stared at him blankly. She sniffled and wiped away the tears on her mask. Yang Jing, drill ground. Looking at the civil and military officials behind Yang Emperor, Yang Chuan said solemnly, Yang Qiuyu, I'll be back in a few years at most. All these years, just do your best. I'll wait for you. Yang Qiuyu nodded. Yang Chuan nodded. By the way, I'll give you a plaque. Yang Chuan waved his hand. A group of brocade guards quickly handed over a wooden plaque. On the plaque, there was a line of big words. Those who offend the Yang dynasty will be killed by me. On the other side of the line of big words, there were the two names Yang Chuan and Zhu Jiansheng. There was also a seal with the word Z printed on it. This can scare the ancestors of Chu, Han, and Wei. Yang Emperor's eyes lit up. Ha ha ha, scare? My and Yang Chuan's names don't count for much. The most important thing is the small purple seal. Not to mention the old ancestors of the three empires, even if all of their sects were to come, they would definitely be scared witless when they see this seal. Zhu Jiansheng interjected with a smile. Oh, good, good, good. Yang Qiuyu was extremely satisfied. Good, that's it. Yang Chuan picked up a cup of wine. Farewell, Emperor equal to the Emperor, the civil and military officials said respectfully. Yang Chuan nodded and drank the wine in his cup. Yang Emperor and the other officials also drank the wine in their cups. Turning his head, Yang Chuan looked at the 3,000 brocade guards. Let's go. Yang Chuan got on his horse. Zhu Jiansheng, the 7 swordsmen, and Zizi also got on their horses and headed out of the city. Yang Chuan, are you really going to bring so many people back to the sect? Zhu Jiansheng asked along the way with a strange expression. Why? You don't allow it. Yang Chuan smiled. You do allow it. Official disciples can bring their servants to the Dai sect. But no one is as exaggerated as you. 3,000. 3,000. Do you know that all the disciples and servants of the Dai sect add up to 4,000 people? You brought 3,000 people. You will have an explanation when you return to the sect. Zhu Jiansheng shook his head with a strange expression. Is that so? Then I'll explain slowly. Ha ha ha. Yang Chuan laughed indifferently. Zhu Jiansheng and the 7 swordsmen had strange expressions on their faces. Not far away, Zizi looked at Yang Chuan's free and easy back. For some reason, the dark clouds covering her heart suddenly dissipated a little. A few days later, a group of people arrived at the foot of a mountain in the north of Yang State. Thousands of people looked at the rolling mountains in the distance. Zhu Jiansheng looked at the 3,000 embroidered uniform army with a wry smile on his face. Yang Chuan, actually, the sect leader gave me a flying boat this time. It can carry us through the air. In a few days, we will arrive at the Dai sect. But you have so many people. The flying boat can't handle it. We will go with you on the mountain path, Zhu Jiansheng said with a wry smile. Yes, don't worry. We will definitely escort you to the Dai sect. The 7 swordsmen immediately expressed their stance. Thank you. Yang Chuan nodded. At this time, Hu Guang ran over from afar. My king, all the food is ready. The soldiers are ready to set off at any time, Hu Guang said solemnly. My king's sedan chair is also ready, Liu Jin said respectfully. No need. I will walk with everyone, Yang Chuan said in a deep voice. Yes. Everyone replied. Let's go. Yang Chuan shouted. Yes. All the soldiers carried their things and followed Yang Chuan to climb the mountain quickly. On the other hand, Zhu Jiansheng, the 7 swordsmen, and Zizi were able to reach the peak of the mountain with just a single step. The mountains in the north were like flat ground in front of these Qi realm experts. Although the mountain path was difficult, none of the 3,000 embroidered uniform army retreated. The path to immortality was right in front of them. Who would want to retreat? Yang Chuan led the soldiers. Even though the embroidered uniform army had to carry a lot of things, they didn't complain. In the next few days, the soldiers encountered 3 monsters. A snake, a bear, and a leopard. They were all in the essence state and were extremely fierce. Zhu Jiansheng and the others didn't interfere. They were all trained by the embroidered uniform army. Strength state. The 3 monsters had eaten a lot, but today, they were all eaten by a group of strength state cultivators. After eating, they complained that it wasn't enough for the 3 monsters. The army of 3,000 was like a swarm of locusts. From this moment on, they officially swept through the cultivation world. Wherever the locusts passed, nothing was left alive. Wherever the army passed, white bones were left. Chapter 216. Day sect, in a hall. A man in his 40s was sitting cross-legged in the north of the hall. He was dressed in a daoist robe and had a broad face. He was meditating with his eyes closed. His body was emitting a faint mist. The only thing missing was that he did not have a left arm. He was only a one-armed daoist. The one-armed daoist slowly opened his eyes. 2 beams of light shot out from his eyes. In front of the one-armed daoist was a young man. He was the 3rd-generation disciple of the Day sect, Feng Shao, who was defeated by Yang Chuan with a grape a year ago. Congratulations, Father. You've cultivated qi into spirit and entered the immortal state. You've become a 1st-generation disciple. I've also become a 2nd-generation disciple. Feng Shao smiled. The one-armed daoist looked at Feng Shao and smiled dotingly. Becoming a 2nd-generation disciple because your cultivation is not high enough. It's not good for your growth. No, becoming a 2nd-generation disciple means you can enjoy more resources in the sect. What's not good for me? Feng Shao was puzzled. You haven't tempered your mind enough. The one-armed daoist shook his head. Tempered my mind? Feng Shao frowned. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been defeated by Yang Chuan with a grape. The one-armed daoist said patiently. Feng Shao was embarrassed. Then, he said with a gloomy face, Yang Chuan tricked me. How would I know? Tricked? Don't blame others for your incompetence. Fortunately, it was Yang Chuan. If it were someone else, you would be dead by now. The one-armed daoist said with a straight face. Father, why are you speaking for him? Have you forgotten? Your left arm was lost because of his father, Yang Dao. If it weren't for that traitor, Yang Dao, who colluded with the demonists, you wouldn't have. Feng Shao said with hatred. Bastard, Yang Dao is the previous sect leader. Don't be disrespectful to him, the one-armed daoist said in a deep voice. So what if he's the previous sect leader? Grandfather was the sect leader 2 generations ago. Back then, he gave up the position to Yang Dao. I didn't expect him to bring so much trouble. Grandfather had no choice but to take charge of the Day sect again, Feng Shao said unhappily. Trouble? Although Yang Dao had brought trouble to the Day sect, his contributions to the Day sect were incomparable. If it weren't for him, would the Day sect be where it was today? In the future, you are not allowed to speak ill of Yang Dao. Do you hear me? The one-armed Taoist said in a deep voice. All right, I won't tell you, Feng Shao said in a huff. Father, if it weren't for your broken arm, you would have reached the divine realm 6 years ago. But fortunately, 6 years later, Father is still a divine realm expert, and has also become the peak master of the Xian Peak. You can fight for the position of the next sect leader. Grandpa is choosing now. Feng Shao smiled again. Peak master? Hehe, we are not the only divine realm experts in our sect. It's just that the other divine realm experts don't want to be bound by this. I've already lost an arm, so I'm not suitable to fight for the position of sect leader. Moreover, I'm not relying on your grandfather today. I have to rely on myself for everything, and so do you. The one-armed Taoist said. I know. You always say that. You are my father. If I don't rely on you, others will look down on me, Feng Shao said strangely. Alas, you should learn more from Jiang Nan, the one-armed Taoist said helplessly. Eldest senior brother? No, now that I'm a 2nd-generation disciple, he is my martial nephew, Feng Shao said proudly. Martial nephew? Oh, soon he will be your senior brother again, the one-armed Taoist shook his head. Jiang Nan is a genius. Last time, he was defeated by Yang Chuan. Instead of being depressed, he became motivated. Now, he has reached the completion of the essence state and can break through to the qi state at any time, the one-armed Taoist said in a deep voice. Chapter 217. It can't be. It's only been a year. In just a year, he rose 3 levels. How is that possible? Feng Shao exclaimed. Nothing is impossible. Jiang Nan is a genius himself. Now, he's working extremely hard. Hard work will eventually pay off. And you, cultivate well. Otherwise, Even if you're a second-generation disciple, no one will think highly of you. The one-armed Taoist said in a deep voice. Isn't there still Yang Chuan? Bastard, do you like to compare yourself with others? How did I give birth to such an unfilial son? The one-armed Taoist said angrily. Father, don't be angry. I didn't say. Feng Shao's expression was strange. Go back to your room and reflect. The one-armed Taoist said unhappily. All right. Feng Shao walked out of the main hall helplessly. Sigh. The one-armed Taoist sighed slightly, lamenting his son's ignorance. Forget it, he's still young. He'll understand in the future. The one-armed Taoist comforted himself. In the forest. The 3,000 embroidered Yi army soldiers were climbing towards the north. After climbing a mountain, they set up camp beside a large lake and rested for a while. Zhu Jiansheng and Yang Chuan sat beside the lake, drinking tea and chatting. Zhu Jiansheng, tell me about the Dai sect. Yang Chuan asked while drinking tea. All right. Zhu Jiansheng nodded. The Dai sect's sect leader, Feng Tairan, is the sect leader 2 generations ago. After your father died, he took over the Dai sect. The sect leader lives on the main peak. Next are the 4 peak leaders, Heaven, Earth, Xian, and Huang. The yellow peak leader, Gao Bufan, is the master of the 7 swordsmen. The black peak leader, Feng Tianyu, is the son of sect leader Feng Tairan. The Earth Peak's peak master is my teacher, Mo Wu Hui. Zhu Jiansheng gave a simple introduction. Yellow peak leader, Gao Bufan. Black peak leader, Feng Tianyu. Earth peak leader, Mo Wu Hui. What about Heaven Peak? What about the last Heaven Peak? Yang Chuan asked doubtfully. Sky Peak. Zhu Jiansheng frowned slightly. The Heavenly Peak Master was originally under your father's control. Not only was your father the sect leader, but he was also the Heavenly Peak Master. Unfortunately, the Heavenly Peak suffered a great loss when your parents died. The remaining disciples all went to the other 3 peaks. Now, the Heavenly Peak is empty, Zhu Jiansheng said in a deep voice. Yang Chuan nodded. In the Dai sect, other than naming people based on their master's lineage, the other way is cultivation, Zhu Jiansheng said after some thought. Oh. 3rd-generation disciples will be promoted to 2nd-generation disciples once they reach the Qi realm. Deity realm cultivators were the 1st-generation disciples. For example, if a 1st-generation disciple takes in a disciple, even if the disciple has no cultivation, he is still a 2nd-generation disciple, just like you. Your father is a 1st-generation disciple, so you are a 2nd-generation disciple. Zhu Jiansheng explained. Oh, there's such a saying. Then, what if I inherit everything from my father and become the Heavenly Peak Master? Yang Chuan asked doubtfully. Ah. Zhu Jiansheng looked at Yang Chuan blankly. Can't I become the Heavenly Peak Master? Yang Chuan asked doubtfully. This, in theory, you can because your current identity belongs to the Heavenly Peak. You are the only one in the Heavenly Peak, so you can naturally be the Heavenly Peak Master. However, if you stay in the Heavenly Peak, who will you take as your master? You will belong to whoever you take as your master. Zhu Jiansheng said blankly. I won't take anyone as my master. I just want to inherit everything from my father. Yang Chuan shook his head. Chapter 218. What? You don't want a master? Then who will teach you how to cultivate? How are you going to cultivate? It's not enough to just read the books in the sect. Without a master to teach you, how are you going to get the experience? How slow is your cultivation speed? Zhu Jiansheng asked. There's no need. I'll find someone when I want a master. Since I'm the only one in Heavenly Peak, I can't leave. Yang Chuan said. Zhu Jiansheng's face twitched. He couldn't figure out what Yang Chuan was thinking. If I become the Peak Master of Heavenly Peak, then I'm. Yang Chuan looked at Zhu Jiansheng. You're a 1st-generation disciple. Zhu Jiansheng was speechless. If that was the case, why did Zhu Jiansheng have to call Yang Chuan martial uncle? The sect master and the other 3 peak masters are all in the divine realm? Yang Chuan asked. All of them. Other than the 3 peak masters, there are some idle martial uncles. They are also first-generation disciples. There are about 10 of them in total. By the way, there are 2 elders in the sect. They are traveling the world. I haven't seen them before. When sect master Feng Tairan gave up his position to your father, he became the 3rd elder. However, because of that incident, he returned to the Dai sect and became the sect master, Zhu Jiansheng explained. Yes. Yang Chuan nodded. Just as the 2 of them were talking, the large lake on the side suddenly started to churn. Gurgle, 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 gurgle. The water in the lake churned, causing everyone to look nervous. The 7 swordsmen, who were eating grilled fish at the side, immediately ran over. ZZ, who was in a small tent, also walked out anxiously. The 3,000 soldiers immediately stopped eating and quickly grabbed their weapons with vigilance. Hu Guang and Liu Jin quickly guarded Yang Chuan. Rumble. In the Great Lake, the water was churning more and more violently. Huge waves even soared into the sky. What's going on? Yang Chuan asked doubtfully. Zhu Jiansheng frowned and said, I don't know. We used to come to this black dragon swamp a lot, but we never found out about this. Ang tilde 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 who tilde tilde tilde. Suddenly, an indistinct roar came from the black dragon pool. Following this roar, the lake water surged violently once again. What's going on? We've all swum in the lake before, so why are there demonic beasts at the bottom of the lake? This has never happened before. The 3 swordsmen were puzzled. As he spoke, a powerful aura emanated from the bottom of the lake, forcing the 3,000 soldiers to retreat. It's a monster, and it should be in the Qijing realm. Stronger than me? Peak of Qijing? Zhu Jiansheng's face darkened. That sound just now, it sounded a bit like a dragon's roar. You said this is the Black Dragon Pool? Yang Chuan looked at Zhu Jiansheng. Yes, but there were no monsters here before. I used to come here often. Zhu Jiansheng was puzzled. I know. Zizi suddenly said. Everyone turned their heads. Misty. You know? What's going on? Zhu Jiansheng was puzzled. Zizi looked at Yang Chuan. Even though she was wearing a mask, her eyes flashed with guilt. It's me. That day, I was too close to you. Because of me, you had to suffer. Zizi's voice sounded like she was about to cry. Ah! Zhu Jiansheng and the others' faces changed as they moved away from Zizi in fear. It's not your fault. Yang Chuan shook his head. No, it's me. There were no monsters here before. It's me. Because of me, you. I said, it's not your fault. Yang Chuan once again interrupted Zizi's guilt. After that, Yang Chuan looked at the lake again. Zhu Jiansheng, 7 swordsmen, since the monster in the lake is only in the Qijing realm, you should be able to resist it, right? Yang Chuan looked at the 8 of them. Haha, don't worry. As long as it's in the Qijing realm, the monsters will only be a side dish. Zhu Jiansheng laughed. It can't be that simple. The 3 swordsmen looked at Zizi and said with lingering fear. Zizi bit her lips. Even though Yang Chuan said it had nothing to do with her, her years of experience told her that it had something to do with her. It's that damn curse again. Chapter 219. Hong tilde 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 tilde. The Black Dragon Pool's water suddenly exploded, and huge waves rolled out in all directions. At the center, a huge monster suddenly rushed out. It was 1,000 feet long and pitch black. Its 4 powerful limbs grabbed the surface of the water. It was a huge black dragon. Its dragon whiskers fluttered in the wind. Its dragon mouth roared and its eyes were filled with anger. The only difference was that it did not have a dragon horn. Ang tilde. The monster looked up to the sky and roared. The surrounding lake water seemed to be under its control and swept in all directions. The powerful sound waves caused the surrounding air to tremble. Some members of the embroidered uniform army couldn't stand it and had to cover their ears. Black Flood Dragon? Yang Chuan narrowed his eyes. Flood Dragon? Zhu Jiansheng also exclaimed. Sheeing. 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 The 7 swordsmen quickly pulled out their swords with vigilance. Where the Flood Dragon is, there must be vassals, Yang Chuan said in a deep voice. Vassal? Zhu Jiansheng was puzzled. Bam. 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 As the flood dragon emerged from the water, more and more giant heads emerged from the bottom of the water. Black, red, green, yellow, all of them. They were huge snake heads. There were 10 of them in total, and each of them had a tumor on their head. They hissed as they flicked their tongues. The flood dragon roared, and the 10 giant snakes prostrated themselves as if they were worshipping the flood dragon. Qi Jing. Zhu Jiansheng's face darkened. These 10 snake kings are also in the Qi state. Senior brother, where is the flood dragon? The 4 swordsmen shouted. He's also in the Qi state. Although he's reached the peak of the Qi state, he hasn't reached the Qi state yet. Zhu Jiansheng confirmed. Bam, 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 bam. Everything was not over yet. One after another, snake heads emerged from the lake. 10, 100, 200. 200 huge snakes emerged from the lake. These 200 are elite realm demonic snakes. Zhu Jiansheng frowned. A flood dragon, 10 Qi state snake kings, and 200 essence state snake demons. How could this be? Why were they all at the bottom of the lake? How did you get here? The 5 swordsmen swallowed his saliva and asked in surprise. Roar. The flood dragon stopped roaring and turned to look at Yang Chuan. A breeze blew past. The flood dragon's eyes were cold as it stared at the group of people in front of it. SSSS. The 10 snake kings hissed at the flood dragon. You want to eat them? The flood dragon suddenly spoke. Hiss 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 hiss. All the snake kings nodded. Not good. Zhu Jiansheng's expression changed. Yang Chuan, let's go. Zhu Jiansheng immediately whispered. No, we can't get away. It's too late. Yang Chuan shook his head. That was because hundreds of demonic beasts were staring at everyone greedily, as if they had not eaten for a long time. Where did they come from? The 3 swordsmen asked with an ugly expression. No matter where it came from, we don't have time to investigate it now. The 8 of you, stop the snake kings. I will deal with the flood dragon, Yang Chuan said in a deep voice. Huh? Zhu Jiansheng and the 7 swordsmen were confused. Yang Chuan, are you kidding? Zhu Jiansheng did not believe him. Even if Yang Chuan was smart, he had no time to prepare for this battle. How could he deal with the demonic beasts? Moreover, it was a flood dragon. Although the Jiao dragon was also in the Qi state, he was much stronger than the Snake King because they were both in the Qi state. It's decided, Yang Chuan said in a deep voice. Chapter 220. Hu Guang. Yang Chuan quickly ordered. Yes, Your Majesty. Hu Guang replied immediately. Lead the First Legion and kill the elite realm snakes. Yang Chuan ordered. Yes, Your Majesty. Hu Guang replied. Liu Jin, this old servant is here. Give me the poisoner's relic, the astral fog. Yang Chuan said. Yes, Your Majesty. Liu Jin quickly handed the astral fog over. Yang Chuan drew the Jade Emperor sword from his back. He held the sword in one hand and the astral fog in the other. Yang Chuan, I'm sorry. I'm a jinx. If not for me. Zizi said guiltily. Haha, no, you're not a jinx. You're my lucky star. Yang Chuan stopped her with a smile. Huh. Be careful and protect yourself later, Yang Chuan said. Ah. Zizi said blankly. In the distance, the flood dragon spoke in human language. You've been following me for so long. Your loyalty is commendable. I'll reward you with this human flesh, the flood dragon said. Roar. Roar. The 10 serpent kings roared excitedly. With the flood dragon's permission, more than 200 snakes quickly swam toward the shore. Their eyes were filled with ferocity. Whoosh. More than 100 snakes rushed over, creating a huge wave. Squad leaders, 15 people against 1 snake. Retreat into the forest and use the trees to hinder the snake's movements. Kill the snakes and make them your food, Hu Guang shouted. Yes, Your Majesty. The 3,000 embroidered Yi army quickly split into 200 groups and scattered in all directions. Zhu Jiansheng and the 7 swordsmen released their powerful auras. The snakes did not dare to approach them. The 200 snakes came ashore and immediately pounced on the embroidered Yi army. Boom. Boom. Wherever the demonic snake passed, It would smash a large number of mountain rocks and break a large number of trees as it charged towards the embroidered Yi army. The 10 great serpent kings stared at Zhu Jiansheng and his group. After all, the origin qi in the meat of high-grade demonic beasts was abundant, and in the eyes of demonic beasts, human flesh was the same. High-grade demonic beasts would naturally eat other high-grade demonic beasts. Roar! The Snake King roared. Sheeing! 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 Zhu Jiansheng and the 7 swordsmen drew their swords and soared into the sky. Clang! 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 A group of sword lights shot out and instantly collided with the group of snake kings. Demonic beasts focused on tempering their bodies. Therefore, the snakeskin of the snake kings was comparable to a strong armor. When the sword light collided with it, it only produced the sound of metal hitting stone. Roar! Roar! The snake opened its mouth, and poisonous smoke rose from all directions, swallowing and spitting at the cultivators. Zhu Jiansheng snorted coldly. The aura around his body went wild, and the sword light exploded, forcing the 2 demon snakes to retreat. Boom! 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 Strong winds blew in all directions. The group of swordsmen were extremely powerful. Mud, rocks, and lake water were all thrown up into the air during the battle. Sword light soared into the sky, and poisonous gas wreaked havoc. Zhu Jiansheng and the great swordsmen each fought against 2 snake kings, while the other 6 fought against 1 snake king each. The battle was intense. It was an inexplicable encounter. Zizi stood not far from Yang Chuan, as if she wanted to protect Yang Chuan. Hua Guang and Liu Jin also stood behind Yang Chuan. Hua Guang, Liu Jin, go and help the First Legion. Wherever there's danger, support them, Yang Chuan ordered. Ah! What about the king? Hua Guang asked anxiously. I'm facing a flood dragon. You can't help me. Yang Chuan shook his head. Ah! All right. The 2 complied and quickly retreated. Only Yang Chuan and Zizi were left. In the distance, the flood dragon standing on the lake's surface also stared at the surroundings. Chapter 221. The flood dragon's face darkened as it looked at the battle around it. At the same time, the flood dragon was also paying attention to Yang Chuan. The flood dragon could speak human language and had a certain level of intelligence as well. Naturally, he could tell from the previous scene that the leader of the other party was actually that kid in the strength state. The flood dragon was confused. Why did so many people listen to him? What was so special about him? Yang Chuan, let me take you away, Zizi said anxiously. No need, don't worry. Yang Chuan comforted her. But you're only in the strength state, you're only in the strength state. Zizi was so anxious that she was about to cry. Strength state? That's enough. Yang Chuan shook his head. No, there are so many demonic snakes. We can't stop them. Let's go before the flood dragon comes. Zizi was about to fly to Yang Chuan. No need, I won't go, Yang Chuan said in a deep voice. Trash, bite that kid to death. The flood dragon shouted angrily in the direction of the snake kings. When the snake kings heard the flood dragon's anger, they became furious. Roar! With a loud roar, one of the snake kings jumped out of the battle circle and swam towards Yang Chuan, even though it was heavily injured by the great swordsman. Another snake king was dragging the great swordsman. Yang Chuan, go! Zhu Jiansheng said anxiously. Yang Chuan turned a deaf ear to him. The snake kings roared and swam towards Yang Chuan. Yang Chuan looked at the flood dragon and sneered. A snake transformed into a flood dragon? You're so lucky. Among all the snakes, you're the only one who can transform into a flood dragon. However, you're still a flood dragon. You're still my meal. Meal on a plate. Me. You're courting death. The flood dragon shouted angrily. Snakes wanted to eat humans, humans wanted to eat snakes too. If a chi state expert said that, the flood dragon would not be so angry. However, a mere strength state mortal dared to disrespect it. The flood dragon was furious and the snake kings moved even faster. I'll hold off the snake king. Hurry up and leave. Zizi said anxiously. I'm fine. Be careful. Yang Chuan shook his head. En. Zizi answered and stepped forward. A long sword suddenly appeared in Zizi's hand. He charged towards the Snake King. Roar! The Snake King roared and opened its mouth to bite Zizi. However, it was at this moment that Zizi miraculously appeared. Boom! In the aftermath of the battle in the distance, a huge rock flew over. Coincidentally, it fell right into the Snake King's open mouth. Gulp! The Snake King's eyes were filled with confusion. What did I just swallow? Chop! Violet Purple slashed out with her sword. The Snake King glared at Zizi. With a twist of its body, it swung its huge tail at Zizi. Its strength was ferocious. As it swung its tail, it brought forth a large amount of stellar energy. Like a storm, it was extremely ferocious. A whip of death lashed out at Zizi. Creak! The Snake King's tail was halfway through when its body suddenly slipped. With a creak sound, its tail deviated and landed on a huge rock. The Snake King's body fell flat on the ground. It fell in front of Zizi in an extremely embarrassing manner. It was as if it had deliberately placed itself on the chopping board. Clang! Zizi easily struck the snake's head. Roar! The Snake King let out a frustrated roar. Boom! Another huge rock from the aftermath of the battle came crashing down. The snake's head was smashed into the ground. Ha 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 ha! The 7 swordsmen who were fighting in the distance laughed. At the same time, they looked at the Snake King with pity. Of all the people you could fight, you chose Miss Z? Are you courting death? On the other hand, the Flood Dragon's face darkened. His capable subordinate had embarrassed himself just now. How could he fall in the middle of a battle? Chapter 222. The Flood Dragon's face darkened. His right-hand man had embarrassed himself too much just now. How could he fall down in the middle of a battle? Roar! The Snake King roared as it pulled its head out from the ground. The shattered rocks smashed towards Zizi. Ah! Zizi panicked, and the sword in her hand was suddenly knocked away by a piece of rock. She was in a sorry state. The Flood Dragon regained its composure. Ka! Coincidentally, the long sword fell into a crevice, and the sword hilt was inserted into the crevice. Not good. Zizi grabbed the sword with her jiaohu. At this moment, the Snake King straightened its posture and revealed a ferocious expression. Roar tilde 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 tilde. With a loud roar, the Snake King was enraged. It twisted its body again and threw itself at Zizi. Squeak! Under the Flood Dragon's confused gaze, the Snake King slipped again at the same spot. Another horse fell to the ground. What was worse was that his head just happened to fall onto the long sword that was wedged in between the rocks. Kai! The sword pierced into the Snake King's right eye. Blood splattered everywhere. Roar! 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 The Snake King shook its body in pain. Had it gone blind for the second time? Was it blind? The unlucky Snake King hissed in pain. Who could understand how it felt at this moment? Slipped? Or even blinded its eye? The Flood Dragon's face turned ugly again. Trash! The Flood Dragon shouted. It's fine if you can't beat it, but you crippled yourself before even fighting? Why did I take in such a trash? Roar! The Flood Dragon roared as it rode on the waves. Zizi, run, run! Yang Chuan's face changed. It's okay, it can't do anything to me. Zizi smiled. No, this Flood Dragon is different. It can transform into a dragon and has great luck. Your curse won't affect it much, Yang Chuan said anxiously. Ah! Zizi was stunned. At this moment, the Flood Dragon was already in front of Zizi. Roar tilde 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 tilde. The Flood Dragon roared and opened its mouth to bite Zizi. The huge dragon's mouth spewed out a large amount of fishy smell, and in the blink of an eye, it was right in front of Zizi. Huh! Zizi seemed to be stunned. Boom! Suddenly, a figure knocked Zizi away. He replaced Zizi. Awoo! The Flood Dragon swallowed the figure in one gulp. Zizi, who was flying through the air, saw clearly that it was Yang Chuan. Yang Chuan had knocked her away. Zizi was stunned. Bang! Zizi landed on the ground. No! Zizi howled in grief. Hong long long tilde. Following Zizi's sorrowful roar, the surrounding ground suddenly shook, and deep trenches even appeared in some places. It was as if a great earthquake had erupted due to Zizi's emotions. Dark clouds suddenly covered the sky. The experts fighting in all directions were all inexplicably shocked. What's going on? Zhujiansheng and the others were shocked. Ah, ah, ah! The flood dragon roared in agony. Hong long long! The flood dragon rolled in agony. Yang Chuan, nothing must happen to you. Yang Chuan, Yang Chuan, Zizi said anxiously. Hong long long! The surrounding earthquake continued, and the sky was covered with dark clouds. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. The flood dragon was also writhing in pain. Chapter 223. What's wrong with the flood dragon? And where's Yang Chuan? The people fighting around were anxious. Zizi kept swinging her jiaohu as she pounced on the flood dragon. Boom, boom, boom. The flood dragon rolled on the ground. Impossible. What did I eat? What did I eat? The flood dragon cried out in pain. And my injuries? Why did my injuries from 10 years ago relapse? How is this possible? The flood dragon continued to cry out. The flood dragon rolled on the ground, but Zizi pounced on it. As for the Snake King, who had been fighting with Zizi at the beginning, he was still in a tragic state. His right eye had been blinded, and now his left eye was blinded as well. He was covered in injuries and looked miserable. Spit him out. Spit Yang Chuan out. Zizi said anxiously. Curse. I'm cursed. No, not just that. What's in my stomach? Ah, ah. The flood dragon writhed in pain. The muscles in the flood dragon's stomach quickly twisted and tried to swallow Yang Chuan. However, the moment Yang Chuan entered the flood dragon's mouth, he crushed Poisoner's remnant, the mist shield. Once the mist shield was broken, a large amount of black gas enveloped Yang Chuan. No matter how strong the flood dragon's stomach was, it could not hurt Yang Chuan at all. The Jade Emperor sword in his hand stirred and immediately absorbed the flood dragon's blood. The Jade Emperor sword that had turned black suddenly turned bright red as it absorbed the flood dragon's blood. Flood dragons have dragon scales. No one can do anything to you. Even Zhujiansheng and the others can't break your dragon scales. Unfortunately, you're a newborn flood dragon. Your wild nature hasn't changed. Are you still used to swallowing like a snake? Do you really think the twisting force in your stomach is that great? Yang Chuan sneered. With the mist shield, the Jade Emperor sword absorbed the flood dragon's blood. Facing such high-quality blood, the Jade Emperor sword was very excited. As it absorbed, it trembled. No, no! The flood dragon cried out in pain and rolled around. Zizi pounced towards the flood dragon. Wherever she went, rocks would fall from all directions, ruthlessly adding insult to injury. Obviously, Yang Chuan's conjecture about the flood dragon's great fortune had no effect in front of Zizi. As long as one did evil to Zizi, no matter if one was a snake or a dragon, they would still be unlucky. Moreover, it was an instant misfortune. Release Yang Chuan, release Yang Chuan. Zizi's eyes were filled with tears. Tears flowed out of Zizi's eyes. The flood dragon rolling on the ground also had tears of hatred in its eyes. I want him to come out too. He wouldn't come out. The powerful pressure caused the mist surrounding Yang Chuan to tremble. Yang Chuan raised his eyebrows. He knew that the astral fog wouldn't last for much longer. Suddenly, Yang Chuan saw a red light. Flood dragon's heart? Good. Jade Emperor's sword, if you want to suck, then suck it for me. Use all your strength to suck it out. Quick, quick, quick. Yang Chuan said excitedly. Screech. The Jade Emperor's sword stabbed into the flood dragon's heart. Roar. The flood dragon suddenly opened its eyes and roared. Its body writhed even more violently. It was in so much pain that it was sweating. Spit it out. Spit it out. Zizi cried. The flood dragon was in so much pain that tears streamed down its face. I want to vomit, but he won't come out. Why did this happen as soon as I came out? In the flood dragon's stomach. Hum. The astral fog trembled more violently. Clearly, it couldn't last much longer. Quick, quick, quick. Yang Chuan said anxiously. The Jade Emperor's sword was bright red. Around the sword, red mist rose. The evil aura was no longer black, but a mutated red evil aura. Chapter 224. The Jade Emperor sword absorbed the blood energy, but its grade was too low. The Flood Dragon's blood energy was too strong and couldn't be absorbed in a short time. Quick, quick, quick. The evil aura of the blood sword became stronger and stronger. At the same time, blood energy poured into Yang Chuan's body. If it was in the past, Yang Chuan would definitely disperse this energy. However, time was tight and Yang Chuan didn't reject it. Instead, he kept absorbing it. When the blood energy entered his body, Yang Chuan was surrounded by red mist. At the same time, Yang Chuan felt his blood boiling. Blood boiling? This was a very strange feeling. Yang Chuan didn't know what was going on, but he felt more and more excited. Plop, 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 plop. Yang Chuan's heart beat twice as fast. Twice as fast. What is this feeling? Yang Chuan was shocked. Yang Chuan felt more and more excited. It was a kind of excitement that he had never felt before. His whole body felt like it was on fire. A murderous feeling suddenly filled his body. Kill! 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 Yang Chuan couldn't help but shout. At the same time, Yang Chuan's hair slowly turned red. It was as red as blood. Even his red hair was growing rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it was twice as long. What's wrong with me? Is it the evil aura that's affecting me? No, it's not the evil aura. It seems to be my instinct. My murderous nature. No. Yang Chuan said with an ugly expression. On one hand, Yang Chuan's instinct made him feel bloodthirsty, murderous, and excited. On the other hand, the Emperor's will was strongly suppressing him, making him calm down. One was excitement, the other was calmness. The two wills were in conflict. Reason made Yang Chuan calm down, but instinct made Yang Chuan excited. Yang Chuan's instincts and rationality even made him think that he was sick. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Yang Chuan shouted. Boom. With a wave of his hand, the Flood Dragon's heart was cut in half. So powerful? That's not right. I'm only at the 9th level of the power realm. It's impossible for me to exert such great strength. But why do I have such great strength? Yang Chuan was getting more and more confused. For Yang Chuan, who had everything under his control, Yang Chuan could not adapt to losing control of his body at this moment. Buzz. The astral fog was shaking more and more. Roar. The Flood Dragon let out a sorrowful cry and fell to the ground. Its heart had been cut off. His life was over. Even as it died, the Flood Dragon's eyes were wide open. It didn't understand why it was so unlucky. Why did it die so unjustly? Boom. Yang Chuan ran out of the Flood Dragon's mouth at the last moment before the fog dissipated. Hoo. Yang Chuan landed on the ground, creating a large cloud of dust. On the other side, ZZ, who was crying, was stunned when she saw Yang Chuan. Yang Chuan, you're fine. I'm glad you're fine. ZZ pounced on him excitedly. Just as she was about to reach Yang Chuan, she suddenly stopped as if she was frozen on the spot. ZZ calmed down and the earthquake stopped as well. Snake Monster, Snake King, and the rest of the experts all looked at the Flood Dragon. The Flood Dragon is dead. Yang Chuan killed the Flood Dragon? Jujian Sheng and the rest were at a loss. However, they were more attracted by Yang Chuan's current state. Yang Chuan's hair was disheveled. His originally black hair was now bright red, and it even reached his waist. Yang Chuan's hair was disheveled, and his hair was now bright red. From afar, Yang Chuan looked extremely demonic. He had a blood sword, red hair, and a fearless gaze. Standing in the roaring blood mist, he looked both demonic and demonic. Blood Devil Yang Dao? Jujian Sheng exclaimed. Martial Uncle was also like this in the past. Blood red hair and demonic nature? The great swordsman also exclaimed. Roar tilde roar tilde roar tilde roar tilde roar tilde. On the other side, the Flood Dragon died and the snakes cried out in grief. Chapter 225. Yang Chuan came out from the Flood Dragon's belly and stood still. His blood was boiling, and Yang Chuan could even hear the boiling sound of his blood. Excitement, incomparable excitement. Yang Chuan didn't know what was going on either. He only knew that he wanted to fight, and he wanted to kill continuously. Glaring, he dragged the Jade Emperor sword in his hand and charged at a demon snake. The demon snake was still immersed in the sorrow of the flood dragon's death. It didn't notice until Yang Chuan approached. Roar. The demon snake roared angrily, venting its hatred on Yang Chuan. It swung its tail at an astonishing speed towards Yang Chuan. "Your Majesty, be careful." The surrounding embroidered uniform army cried out in alarm. Swish. Sheeing. Yang Chuan abruptly dodged the snake's tail and slashed at the demon snake's body with his sword. Kai. The sword left a bloody wound on the demonic beast's body. So fast. Hua Guang, who had come to the rescue, exclaimed in surprise. Sheeing. 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 Yang Chuan's body moved violently. The Jade Emperor's sword in his hand slashed out blurry sword shadows. Fast, incomparably fast. It was so fast that it was frightening. CI. All that could be seen was a shadow. Yang Chuan quickly cut down the demonic snake with his sword. How could it be so fast? Almost catching up to me. I'm a Qijing warrior. Zhujian Sheng, who was fighting in the distance, exclaimed. Not only is it fast, but the strength of the realm of strength can't even break the demon snake's skin. The great swordsman was also surprised. Roar. The demonic snake howled in agony, but it couldn't even catch a glimpse of Yang Chuan's figure. Yang Chuan had turned into a bloody shadow and was moving at an astonishing speed, slashing out with his sword. Bam! 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 Piece after piece of flesh was cut off by Yang Chuan's sword. A large amount of snake meat was sliced into slices and soared into the sky like a torrential rain. Roar! Roar! In front of Yang Chuan, who was in the strength state, the elite state demonic snake was completely defenseless. It allowed Yang Chuan to cut it into pieces. Yang Chuan's eyes flashed with a red light. Quick, 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 what's going on? In this life, I'm only in the strength state. How can I be so fast? Yang Chuan looked at the long sword in his hand in confusion. No, it can still be faster, it can still be faster, Yang Chuan said in surprise. Boundless excitement enveloped Yang Chuan. For a moment, Yang Chuan's strength skyrocketed. My thoughts aren't in chaos, so I'm not going berserk. I just need to be excited. Right now, it seems like I'm only in the transition stage. I haven't been completely excited yet, but I'm already so fast and powerful. What would happen if he was completely stimulated? Hundreds of thoughts flashed through Yang Chuan's mind. Excited? No, there was also insolence. There was also an insolence that was about to erupt. A kind of unbridled evil intent. This unbridled mentality, is it trying to cover up my own will? No, no. Yang Chuan suddenly let out a furious roar. We can't let this situation continue. My will cannot be violated, not even by myself. Yang Chuan's eyes widened. Boom. Yang Chuan dispersed the blood mist around him with a loud bang. He suddenly became quiet. A domineering aura was emitted. Holding the blood sword, he stood there motionlessly. As for the demonic snake just now, Yang Chuan had already cut off all its flesh. Only a skeleton was left. Yang Chuan closed his eyes and didn't move. He used his strong will to suppress his boiling blood. His blood-red hair slowly turned black again. Moreover, it slowly shrunk back to its original state. Chapter 226. Yang Chuan's heart slowly calmed down, and his blood stopped boiling. He slowly calmed down and recovered. Around them, the group of experts seemed to be dumbfounded. Wang Gang Cai. Hua Guang still had lingering fear. Yang Chuan's state just now was too evil. His sword was as fast as light, and he was bloodthirsty. No one was allowed to get close. Zizi covered her mouth, and her eyes were filled with joy and surprise. Yang Chuan's heart calmed down. My body is not unwell, and there are no sequelae from the disintegration of the poison. Where did that power come from? I'm only in the strength state now, how can I have the power of the essence state? And that speed, Even the essence state in my previous life couldn't reach it. What's going on? Yang Chuan frowned and pondered. At the same time, another thought came to his mind. Just now, I was only in a semi-excited state, and I didn't fully demonize, but I had such power. What if I just let it go? Let it go, and demonize with all my strength. What should I do? Yang Chuan's heart was in turmoil. Yang Chuan knew clearly that power came from cultivation, and it wouldn't increase for no reason. It definitely wouldn't. But just now, it did increase. Why? What was going on? Kill. Shoot. The battle continued. Yang Chuan slowly opened his eyes, and there was still some confusion in his eyes. Looking at the demon snake in front of him, Yang Chuan was deep in thought. Wang. Huguang came forward. I'm fine. Go help the others. The flood dragon is dead, and the demon snakes will definitely escape. Don't let them escape. Kill them all. Yang Chuan said in a deep voice. Yes. Huguang replied. At this moment, a group of demon snakes did start to escape, but the army was already deployed. How could they let them escape? Absolutely not. Yang Chuan, you're fine. It's great that you're fine. Zizi wiped the tears on her mask. Of course I'm fine. Yang Chuan chuckled as he walked over. Don't come over, don't come over. I can't hurt you anymore. Zizi retreated in fear. I'm fine, aren't I? Yang Chuan comforted. Don't come over, Zizi shouted. Stop right there. Yang Chuan shouted. Zizi paused in a daze. Yang Chuan slowly walked to Zizi. She stared into Zizi's eyes. Aren't I fine? Don't worry, I'm blessed. Moreover, you've helped me a lot this time. Without you, how could I send so much meat at once? Yang Chuan said with a smile. But. Zizi still shook her head. No buts. Everything has two sides. Even if you are cursed, as long as you control it well, you can turn it into a blessing, right? Yang Chuan smiled and comforted him. Staring at Yang Chuan, Zizi felt warmth in her heart for some reason. It had been a long time since he had felt this way. When was the last time? Zizi recalled. Brother Z, don't worry. Your daughter is our daughter. We'll take good care of her. I've already given birth to a son. Now, we'll become in-laws. In the future, she'll be my son Yang Chuan's wife. When we're not around, my son will take care of her. He won't let her suffer. The warmth from the last time was still vivid in her mind. Now, it was happening again. Zizi looked at Yang Chuan in a daze. She was choked with emotions for a moment. Haha, don't worry. I've already said that you're my lucky star. Yang Chuan laughed. Thank you. Zizi said softly. Chapter 227. You're welcome. Let me check myself first. I don't know why my hair turned red just now. Yang Chuan said with a smile. No, it's blood red hair. It's fine. Your father was like that too. Zizi said immediately. My father? Yang Chuan was confused. Yes, many people know that uncle became famous because of his blood red hair. People gave him the title of Blood Demon. I heard that during the Heavenly Bestowment Conference, uncle defeated all the experts in his blood red hair state and stole the limelight. Zizi explained. My father was like that too. Does it run in my family? Yang Chuan was surprised. I'm not sure. But I think your father left you a letter. It should be in the Day sect. You should know everything after you inherit your father's legacy. Zizi explained. Okay. Yang Chuan nodded. My father can do it too. Yang Chuan was relieved. At least it wasn't a problem with cultivation. Blood demon. Blood demon. 2 days later. At the Black Dragon pool, Yang Chuan cleaned himself up and walked back to the shore after washing up. At the moment, the Black Dragon Lake was surrounded by a large number of demon snakes, snake kings, and flood dragons. Jujian Sheng, the 7 swordsmen, and the others surrounded the flood dragon's body and looked at it. Their eyes were shining with excitement. Huguang ran to them. King, demon snakes, none of them escaped. They were all killed. 100 of our brothers were slightly injured and 8 of our brothers were severely injured. Huguang said in a deep voice. Okay. Yang Chuan nodded. Zhujian Sheng, the 7 swordsmen. Yang Chuan shouted. At this moment, the 8 of them were also in a sorry state, each with injuries on their bodies. But their faces were filled with excitement. Yang Chuan, you are really something. That was a Jiao dragon. Even though it was only at the Qi state, it was still powerful enough to kill an immortal state warrior. The 3 swordsmen looked at Yang Chuan in disbelief. You guys killed the 10 great snake kings. You guys are also amazing. Yang Chuan laughed. What? The snake kings were confused because of the death of the flood dragon. That's why we took advantage of them. Moreover, one of them was killed by Miss Z. We don't dare to claim credit. The 4 swordsmen giggled. Everyone, what do you think of this flood dragon skin? Yang Chuan looked at the complete corpse of the flood dragon and asked with a smile. Sure, this is a dragon scale. Even the worst dragon scale is still a dragon scale, a top-grade material. The great swordsman laughed. Yang Chuan smiled and said, how about this? The flood dragon's skin belongs to you. As for the snake kings you killed, give them to me. You don't want the dragon scale? Zhujian Sheng was surprised. What do you think? Yang Chuan continued to laugh. Then we won't stand on ceremony, the 7 swordsmen said excitedly. But you're at a disadvantage. It's easy to find a snake king, but it's hard to find a flood dragon. Zhujian Sheng frowned. If you feel embarrassed, my subordinates are injured. Help me heal their injuries. That's enough. Yang Chuan shook his head. That's easy. We can help them heal by transferring their spiritual essence. The great swordsman immediately promised. Also, can we rest for a while and go to the Day sect after a few days? Why? I want to rest here. Yang Chuan said solemnly. Okay, no problem. It's a small matter. The 8 people agreed. Well, in that case, you can go and divide the flood dragon's skin. I still have use for the meat. Yang Chuan laughed. Okay. The 8 people rubbed their palms together excitedly. Dragon scales. These are dragon scales. The 8 of them went to skin the flood dragon. Yang Chuan looked at Hu Guang beside him and said, pass down my order. Everyone in the Jinyi army is above LV9 of the power realm. By the time we finish eating the snake meat, I want everyone to reach the complete stage of the power realm. Yes. Hu Guang said excitedly. Remember, those who can pass the heavenly tribulation, don't do it. My king, don't worry. I'll pass down the order now. Hu Guang said excitedly. Chapter 228. Transan Yang Chuan. Beside the Black Dragon Pool, the Embroidered Yi army was stationed around. A large number of Embroidered Yi army members were sitting cross-legged and practicing. Enjoying the demonic beast meat allowed the Embroidered Yi army's cultivation to improve rapidly. King, this is dragon meat. Liu Jin respectfully served Yang Chuan a plate of good meat. Have you prepared it for Miss Z? Yang Chuan asked in a low voice. Miss Z said she didn't want to eat it, so she gave it all to you. Liu Jin said respectfully. Got it. Liu Jin, during this period, you can eat as much as you want. Cultivate well. Yang Chuan said in a low voice. Yes. Liu Jin said with a trace of excitement. At the bottom of the Black Dragon Pool, Zhujian Sheng, 2nd swordsman, 5th swordsman, and 6th swordsman each opened a qi wall to block the surrounding water. The 4 of them stood at the bottom of a black hole and waited patiently. Senior brother, there was no black hole here before. 2nd swordsman frowned. Maybe there was, but it was blocked by something before, so we didn't notice it. Zhujian Sheng shook his head. The 4 of them have been in there for 6 hours, why haven't they come out yet? Why don't we go in and have a look? 2nd swordsman said again. No, let's continue to wait. Zhujian Sheng shook his head. Okay. The 3 of them sighed slightly, while the 4 of them were waiting anxiously. Boom. 4 streams of light shot out from the hole. Boss. 2nd swordsman was surprised. They were the other 4 swordsmen. How is it? Zhujian Sheng asked immediately. Damn, this hole is really deep, really deep. 3rd swordsman suddenly cursed. Oh. Zhujian Sheng was puzzled. We haven't reached the end. This hole should lead to a very, very far place. Great Swordsman smiled bitterly. What? You've been in the cave for 6 hours, and you still haven't reached the bottom? The second swordsman was surprised. Yes, that's right. Also, according to our analysis, the cave should be connected to the mountain of windy demons. It should be connected to a deep pool on the other side of the mountain of windy demons. The flood dragon came from the mountain of windy demons, the swordsman said solemnly. Demon Wind Mountain Range? Zhu Sheng frowned as he asked. That's the territory of the demonic beasts, and cultivators generally don't dare to step into it. Even if the Serpent Kings and Serpent Kings aren't at the top of the hierarchy, they're at least at the middle level of the demonic beasts. However, this place is the world of cultivators, and they can be killed by cultivators at any time. Why did they flee from the Demon Wind Mountain Range? Could something have happened to the Demon Wind Mountain Range? The great swordsman frowned. I can't be sure, but it's very unusual. Our Day sect is located at the edge of the mountain range of the Demon Wind Mountain, so we have to be cautious. We must report this to the sect leader immediately, Zhu Sheng said in a deep voice. How about this? We'll stay here and look after Yang Chuan. Old Seven, you go back to the sect and quickly report to the sect leader. The great swordsman thought for a moment and said, Okay. As they spoke, they floated toward the surface of the lake. Bang! They rushed out of the lake. One of them shot toward the north while the other 7 flew toward the shore. On the shore, Miss Z was sitting alone at a stone table, drinking wine. When she saw them coming out from the bottom of the lake, she immediately shouted, The 7 of you, come here. Her! Zhu Sheng and the others were shocked. The 7 of them did not dare to resist. With a trace of fear, they flew 20 feet away from ZZ and did not dare to approach her. Have you investigated the bottom of the lake? What's the situation? ZZ asked. Zhu Sheng and the others did not dare to hide anything and immediately told her everything. Demon Wind Mountain Range? ZZ frowned slightly. Does Miss Z know anything about it? Zhu Sheng asked curiously. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.